Good morning, everybody. Here we are in a new landscape. Thank you for showing up. We have close to 600 people registered to take part in critical conversations today. My name is Sandra. I am the principal at Inc. Landscape Architects. I am a cultural listener and an advocate for honest human connections. We are in the midst of a time of great change. This brings challenges as well as opportunities. Personally, I've experienced all emotions, from deep despair to incredible hope, which catalyzed the birth of Cut Fill. I sincerely appreciate your trust as we walk on this new path we are about to build together. Our collaborators, the Urban Studio, have been tremendous in helping to shape this first open space unconference for landscape architects. And much of the funding from this event will go towards their nonprofit work. There are 4 individuals whom I need to recognize and who have been working to give life and identity to this event. Andrew, or Drew Sargent, with the Urban Studio, Heidi Nubantu Saul, our open space facilitator, Nicole Cohen, landscape designer at Margie Ruddick Landscape, and Lucas Chaffee at KikoChat. We have several thank yous to mention for whom this event would not be possible. First, thank you to our understory sponsor, Anova Furnishings, for their very generous donation to support this event. Later today, we ask that you please check out their virtual booth and remember them when working on your projects. Thank you to our seed sponsors, Landscape Forms and Permalock, also for their very generous donations to support this event. We would like to thank ASLA, Landscape Architecture Foundation, Land 8, and the Ecological Landscape Alliance for their promotional support and encouragement. Finally, we would like to thank the following supporting firms who stepped forward during this time to commit to being present and seeing the importance of this event. CMG Landscape Architecture, GGN, David Rubin Land Collective, Matthews Nielsen Landscape Architects, Nelson Bird Woltz Landscape Architects, OJB Landscape Architecture, Reed Hildebrand, Sasaki, Smith Group, Stoss Landscape Urbanism, Studio Balcones, SWA, TBG, and West 8. This type of event, based on peer-to-peer knowledge sharing, is what is needed in moments like this, when no single one of us has the answer. CEU credits are available for the first 2 hours of day 1. We're hoping that the other hours of unconventional distance learning set the precedent to become eligible for credits in future events such as this. If you find this type of distance learning extremely valuable, please let us know. If you're earning CEUs, look for the CEU tab in the main room later today, or message us in the chat. By definition, cut and fill is the process of constructing, whereby the amount of material from cuts roughly matches the amount of fill needed to make nearby embankments, so as to minimize, and here is the key point, to minimize the amount of construction labor. During this event, you get to raise the questions that you want to discuss. Here are the questions on my mind. How can we stop creating our social echo chambers and build upon other worldviews? When will we erase our individual egos and fill ourselves with empathy? What can we do to cut our dismissive behavior in order to notice when people are hurting? What are we diagramming and drawing in our construction sets that is affecting the human experience? How will our field treat the silos, sitting tall and alone? When will we realize that someone is not in the room you curated? What will you do to notice this? I look forward to hearing what you have to say and the topics that you raise. Now I'd like to hand the mic over to Drew.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Sargent. I'm a founding member and vice president of the board of the Urban Studio. I echo Sandra's comments and would like to thank all the sponsors and attendees for participating on the behalf of the Urban Studio. For those unfamiliar, our mission is to advance design thinking for equitable and sustainable urbanism. As designers of color, working with communities of color, most notably with 16+ students and workshops centered around design education. And before I get too far, I just want to let you guys know this isn't a Zoom background. I want to apologize if there's any background noise, but I'm actually in my mom's garden in the backyard of the house that I grew up in. And I've been home for a little bit visiting with family, which was provided a great time to reflect on the factors in the built environment just beyond this fence that has influenced my life, not just in the hobbies that I enjoy, but also in the career that I've chosen. I believe we're all here for a necessary and incredible event. And while this conversation has initially been centered around the field of landscape architecture, we've been approached by a wide array of allied professionals to be involved in this discourse. We've opened the invitation to all design professionals, knowing that to move forward, we must have a concerted effort from everyone. Can we afford to be stagnant while the world is changing? What are the challenges and opportunities for the field of landscape architecture as we move forward in this unprecedented time of a global pandemic and civil unrest from racial injustices? I hope that you've thought long and hard about these questions before arriving today. And I've been thinking about what to say to you all that hasn't already been said. As design professionals, we understand that our imagination gives us shape to the future. Our creative power manifests in the world and creates change, and that same imagination is necessary for the liberation of people and our role in that liberation. With increased global awareness to racial injustice, we're all pulled in an essential and complicated discourse around race. The people demonstrating in cities across the world are taking us to task, and we've also been forced to pause and think as we've been sheltered in place for the last few months, knowing that while we've been fortunate to continue our work, many of those protesting injustices are disproportionately affected by the global pandemic. Now is the opportunity to create a new and more just world that's never existed outside of our imagination. We know that creating this new world will be hard work, and I believe most of us want to do that work. And part of this work means coming to terms with the failed manifestations of design throughout history and confronting them within practice and academia. Understanding that urbanism hasn't been good for everyone, and results of urban renewal and gentrification have contributed to the erasure of historical context and heritage from beloved cities and neighborhoods across the US. We've assembled a panel of professionals whose work and experience allows them to speak directly to that topic. And if we are to move forward in heightened capacity, we must understand that the current culture of our firms, the current culture of our educational systems, and the current culture of our professions cannot come with us. We must focus on the missing critical perspectives, not only amongst minority designers, but also in the communities which we work and serve. Our second panel will speak to the proactive measures and practice in academia regarding the confluence of the pandemic and racial injustice, and how design professionals can push forward for a more just and equitable future. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first panel. The first member is Justin Gatmore, AICP. He's the Executive Director of New York City Public Design Commission. As a professional, he has extensive experience in urban design and city planning, from large-scale urban systems, policies, projects, to grassroots and community-focused planning and design and arts initiatives. Our second panelist is Maria Aquero de Acron. She's the Associate Professor of Architecture and Urban Regional Planning and Director of Master in Urban Design at University of Michigan Tubman College. Maria's work advances urban strategies promoting cultural, environmental values in territories under conditions of scarcity. She leads her studio, a research-based collaborative design practice that offers integrated expertise in architecture, landscape, and urbanism. And last for the first panel is Austin Allen. He's a principal at Design Jones LLC, an associate member of practice, and an associate professor of practice at the School of Architecture at the University of Texas, Arlington. Austin has participated in 12 years of recovery efforts in New Orleans and Jacmel, Haiti, and has been assisting in rebuilding community and engaging students in related service learning and design projects. And if I can ask all the panelists of the first panel to kind of give me a thumbs up, I will set the timer and we will begin the first panel for today.
Great. Thank you, Drew, for the introduction and for Sandra and the entire team for putting together this great event. We're all collectively going through a lot right now, and it's important to have these conversations. So I'm Justin, and the focus and kind of start of this conversation, we really did want to take on this theme or thread of erasure, especially as it ties to this notion of the cut and the fill, right? The labor and the work that it takes to do that. So my fellow panelists and I are going to sort of share some thoughts and conversation on that, and do feel free to kind of use the chat and leave some threads and thoughts that maybe we can incorporate into our conversation. So I wanted to start with this idea of erasure, kind of first with a prompt. You know, we have hundreds of people. I want to right? Maybe it's an experience with your parents or a place. You know, Drew's in his old backyard, and just think of something that really means a lot to you from your life experience, and let that sit for a second. Now imagine that has been erased. It's just gone. This is something that has happened, especially to people of color, to people that have been dispossessed from their land, from their communities, from their power, from their wealth, from their work, from their time, their hearts, their minds, consistently for generations, as long as pretty much anyone can remember. And the thing that's important about erasure is that it takes work to do that. It doesn't just happen, right? And all of us as design professionals are a part of that work in many different ways. And in this conversation, I think we want to kind of think about the many different ways that this happens, right? The expertise, the skill, the processes, the money, the effort that it takes to sort of to change and transform places. But this also is a convening of professionals and people that work in these built environment fields. And I wanted to share my own kind of very recent and very personal version of erasure. So as Drew mentioned, I'm executive director of a New York City agency, the Design Commission. We do design review for public projects. And something that I was feeling very empowered and sort of excited to do was to develop work around affordable housing design that's happening in New York City and sort of generally beyond. You know, the premise that good design can improve outcomes in communities across the city, including communities of color. So develop this effort working very collaboratively across many different players and partners. And there was a AIA conference in New York a couple years ago. And there was a conference panel presentation on all this collective work that we had done around advancing quality affordable housing through good design. Physically in the middle of the panel, we all do our presentations. It's great conversation, great engagement. And then the producers of that conference later presenting that work online publicly. So there's, you know, video, the presentations, description of the panel. And the video is posted and I was edited out of the video entirely. I was literally erased. So, you know, they cropped the video so that I didn't appear in the images, the content and voices and the ideas and the provocations that I was putting forward were edited out. And the remaining white panelists remained, right? They became the record and the voice of that conversation. So the reason I mention this is because it took work to do that. Anyone that's edited a video knows this, right? It took work to do that. It took intention to do that. And so it's just something I wanted to kind of offer as a an example. It's a little example of the many small and different ways, like the death by 1,000 cuts, that there's sort of this taking of agency and power and voice in the work that we're all doing together in the built environment. With that, I really wanted to kind of open it up to my fellow panelists, maybe Maria, to share some of their thoughts and prompts on this topic of erasure.
Thanks, Esten. I'm gonna jump in because I think your prompt is asking us to be intentional with our decisions, and it's asking us to be fully charged on how we make I don't know, how we make choices. As a woman, as an immigrant for a few years, not anymore, voting this November, I felt at times my voice being muted, disregarded, or my contributions not being necessarily welcome. But, what I'm also very, very aware of is that here I am, middle-class European, white, with an incredible privilege that I need to be able to use with intentionality, being fully aware of how the spaces that I inhabit and the incredible opportunities that the job that I have are giving me can be put to use, can be in a way intentionally focus on making sure that we are giving visibility and making stories like yours that are part of your everyday experience find the space, the time, the right mediums to be communicated and to make us all aware. I have the incredible privilege, as I say, of being in an academic institution that is fully committed to my intellectual growth. And what this is giving me is, a continuous challenge in which the way in which I design my projects, my research projects, are always trying to focus on how can I help visualize the realities, the everyday struggles of many underprivileged communities that have been intentionally erased, not mapped, are continuously a struggle with evictions, and we'll maybe talk a little bit about that. I'm doing work in Sao Paulo, where we work with a lot of communities in the south of the city. Sao Paulo is a city that in a way it's asking us to imagine. It's about all the kind of beauty and exuberance, and at the same time a huge amount of the population in the south, people of color, mainly living in incredibly dark conditions that require us to continue bring them to the map. So again, this is intentional. These are projects that need to be shaped, need to be framed, and are requiring us to be allied of the many different groups that are already working on the side with many of these communities. So in a way, here I feel like it's about performing as conduits, so that the stories that would be otherwise forgotten, erased, invisible, can find different ways of reaching out, gaining audiences, and in a way educating us. But then at the same time, every time I'm working on a syllabus, and I know there are a lot of students joining us today, I feel like we have to be intentional, because every time we design a syllabus and we decide what are the sources that we are including and what are the sources that we are excluding, we are intentionally making choices about the kind of conversations, the kind of practices, the kind of worlds that we want to give access to our students. And here I've learned, over time, I'm very privileged to teaching grad students, which means that they already come with a pretty good sense of what do they want to do in their return to a school. How important it is for me to find room to co-create, to co-produce this syllabus, right? This kind of contract that we establish every semester with our students, so that this becomes a process of mutual learning, of mutual construction of knowledge, but also of spaces of inclusivity, right? Because it's not so easy at this very moment in time to have just one way, to have just one voice deciding what are the right conversations, what are the right areas of focus. So with this, I feel like there is an invitation. Your story is in a way making more and more clear that solidarity is not enough. This is a moment to take action, to listen, but also, to be an ally, to take a position and contribute. And, I thank these spaces, this moment like today for that, but also I thank you for all the incredible patience of continuously refocusing the conversation to make us see what we don't see in many instances. And I hope we will find many other opportunities to address that during our conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. I think this sort of thread of how privilege and kind of awareness and tension needs to connect our work instead of doing what it's done historically, which is to divide our work, I think is so critical in this moment. I really respect that kind of acknowledgement so much, particularly when you're in sort of one of the kind of frameworks of power, right, within an institution. And there's a lot of work to kind of push and challenge institutions to do that. I know Austin is here as well, and sort of curious some of his thoughts kind of on this work and this conversation.
I was really excited to be talking about erasure and just what both of you have said in terms of not only teaching, but in terms of the field itself. It's every day we're confronted with it. And one of the big things a lot of people have heard me talk about over the years is that we do not draw enough from every day-to-day people who have been excluded from what our discipline does, what the field does in terms of it. And it goes all the way back to our beginnings in the United States in terms of being a discipline and a field. And it also goes back to the way we constructed, the built environment here. We talk about it, I learned it, listening to others, and particularly it crystallized when J.B. Jackson began to talk about how within 2 to 3 years, things fell apart in Jamestown. And what became apparent is that the whole slave trade was not just labor, it was a transfer of knowledge and materials from one continent to another. And it was important in that process, as slavery was a part of that, was to deny that knowledge base. And it has impacted the way we see landscape very heavily. And the beauty of the moment is we really can free ourselves from those kinds of erasure processes. I was mentioning earlier about people like Kofi Boone, who looked at South Carolina and sees so much of Africa in South Carolina's landscape, in this landscape itself. It's something that the discipline from the very beginning had that kind of understanding through Olmsted. When he came through South Carolina, that's why he spent more time. He was like, what is this? What is this place? And it was because of the rice. It was because of what happened in that transfer of knowledge. We deny ourselves that kind of articulation every day. And it's not just African Americans. It's happened with many different groups of people who have ended up in the United States. It's a beautiful small film I used to show students all the time called History and Memory by Ria Tajiri. And it's about the camps from World War II, the Japanese internment camps. And where she goes in this 20-some minutes is so important to me is she talks about the confiscation of property, all right, in a poetic way, but it's because of what people were doing to the landscape itself. The fact is that in the internment camp, she goes back and looks at them, and these are in the desert, yet all this green growth is happening there, or a particular reason the way wells were being done. We don't even think about what we have erased on a day-to-day basis. And what I get excited about is you've got a whole new set of generation who has the opportunity to really pull back the covers and let's get to the serious business of, seeing what's in front of us.
I love that. No, I love this. I want to kind of connect and bridge, I think, something that came out, what you were just saying, which is in some ways a kind of the collective construction of landscape and construction of place. Problematic structures, but along with what Maria was saying, which I just thought was incredibly beautiful, the kind of the construction of knowledge, co-construction and mutual construction of knowledge. I really enjoy that kind of combination of thought as a challenge to this moment that we're all in together now, right? That we have to find ways to do that work.
I agree. I agree completely. I think that we've opened up new venues in that way with firms that are just emerging, firms that have been established, the way we do studios. We're at a major crossroads in terms of higher education. And I think that shift, plus the way the field is organized, is just where those kinds of things start to happen, and, the intentionality, I absolutely agree. We have to just come to this new level of openness and not be afraid of what lays ahead for us, I mean, like you said, with your situation, the labor that went into editing you out was probably more intense than having to deal with what you were saying, it's that reversal of roles in that kind of way. And it's the international aspect of it too.
Yeah, Maria, absolutely. You've done this kind of work globally, and this is an international problem and conversation, right? I think, the erasure that's happening real time in so many cities across the globe connects with some of the versions that we see here in the US.
Yeah, and it's what is interesting for me, and Steve is in the second panel, and he will be able to share many more really deep stories about his time in Detroit, engaging many communities. My college is relatively close to Detroit. We are in Ann Arbor, a small, comfortable college town, but a lot of the work and a lot of what we try to do when connecting with local communities is actually looking at Detroit. And it was incredible for me to be able to witness similar conversations this year, as the work that we are doing with partners in Sao Paulo was very much focusing on access to water in many informal communities in the South. When we are talking about washing your hands and basic hygiene criteria, right? To be able to in a way endure this pandemic. At the same time, citizens in Detroit were once again disconnected from access to water, something that we should consider a basic human right, and is now, in the process of litigation, because as soon as the emergency goes, many of these households will go back to normal, not being able to attain and not to be able to, pay for a basic, service that pretty much, can make your life in the city, your access to the basic right to the city impossible. So I feel like, no matter how much the current political discourse is trying to split us apart, and we see many nations and many leaders in those nations trying to, build and contain, narratives on their own, I feel like there is so much that is connecting us, and there is, so much need of finding new opportunities for these conversations to happen and this work to be accessible, and really reach out to many firms, many younger professionals because I feel like what is at stake, as Austin was saying, is that we really need to reinvent new models of practice, and we need to bring a different kind of imagination on how to be able to honor, the people and, how they construct their landscapes, but at the same time, we need to help them uplift their lives because of, how many incredible struggles they are dealing with. So I think, keeping the conversation in between the highly local, highly specific, and, our capacity to reach out and to listen, locally, but then at the same time, just making sure that we are, connecting globally, because the struggles are very similar, and, the processes and, the policies that continue to erase rights for many communities are so similar that I feel like we need so much to learn from each other. And I no need to say how much, landscape architecture is a profession, is a discipline that is very much invested in, in creating cultural landscapes and creating, a really rich set of experiences and connections to the land. So I think like we have all opportunities to feel energized and optimistic about a better future. Just, I don't know, being an educator, I just see the incredible talent and energy that our students are bringing to the classroom, and I can only, feel optimistic, even if there is a lot at stake.
And we're doing it at a time when all these things are happening. The pandemic, to me, as painful and as horrible as the deaths are, is such an opportunity for us to figure out how to bring health issues, how to look at how we interact in spatial temporal terms. I'm like, we should be so immersed in this, and I see it in the way we talk about what we're going to do in the fall in terms of teaching. It's like we've got to struggle through it. That's what we've got to do. We can't say, is it going to be like it used to be, or are we going to go all online? We know better. All right. We know that somewhere in between all these things we have to move forward with. And the excitement is you have all these new students to me who just won't stay still in the discipline. They're like, I'm going to do this, but I'm also going to do this. And,
Yes.
That's what I'm going to do now, and we have to be conscious that the world has shifted in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the intro, Sandra mentioned the silos that we've kind of traditionally been kind of forced to operate within, and that has its own way of limiting and constraining the work, if we kind of use the term the work, that people need to try to do, and innovation and agency in so many different ways, and kind of access to these disciplines or silos is something that we always have to read common sense, and just seeing even in this conversation that it's not only state, we have students, we have people from different backgrounds, understand that we need to have this conversation together, and that's such an important moment. And I do think the situation with the pandemic and protests and Black Lives Matter explicitly are forcing people to just acknowledge at a more direct and clear way how the world is not built, designed, conceived, operated to the benefit of people and planet. It's just so blatantly apparent now, and that we all kind of have to find ways to sort of shift that mode that's incredibly broken.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I look forward to it. I mean, I in every way possible, I look forward to these kind of new moves, these new ways of organizing ourselves, and panels like this, the cut feel, I think, are going to be such the strong responses, series of these as strong response as we are navigating, you know, the social distance we have to do and other things that we have to do at this time.
Right. Maria, I don't know if you have any final comments.
I have to say, I want to thank to all the participants for the incredibly thoughtful comments that you are adding in there. I feel like, yes, we haven't even touched on climate change or the many climates that, you know, we need to be addressing, and, you know, how justice needs to be central to all of them. I think we haven't talked or even acknowledged the importance of indigenous lands in many of the conversations that we are having right now. I wish we could go back to all your chats. Don't think they are going unread. Is just, you know, how much we have to be able to convey. And I'm just looking forward to the conversations in the next 2 days. So thank you, Justin. Thank you, Austin. For me, I have to say, there is a great opportunity in using the digital as a medium, as a conduit to truly bring more voices and be more democratic and more radically inclusive in what are the voices that, you know, we are bringing to share the stories. But I'm also incredibly concerned about losing the opportunity to engage physically with the places and the peoples that are, you know, not just a little square in the screen. So I look forward to what is coming this fall, but I'm also totally invested to figure out ways to balance how to not to lose those connections, because I think they are incredibly important for the profession and the discipline. So thank you, everybody, for, you know, all the comments, and thank you, Justin and Austin.
Yes, thank you, Austin and Maria.
If I could, I just want to quickly say that one of the things I hope happens, and Maria and I have talked briefly on it before, and I'm excited that there be a conversation around informal settlements and where we are, you know, really in terms of that globally, and particularly, you know, as we face it in this country in ways that we have not begun to have a serious, you know, conversation here and effort in the way that we have to, particularly during this time of the pandemic.
Well, thank you so much to our first panel members and a really great discussion. And you can see why we kind of limited it to 25 minutes, because these guys can go for a long time. Of course, a lot of the things that again were mentioned in the chat hopefully will turn into discussion topics for the sessions afterwards for folks to continue to talk about. I'm going to take a moment to now introduce the second panel. And the first person on this panel I'm going to introduce is Ulysses Sean Vance. He's Associate Professor of Architecture at Temple University, Go Owls. And he's the co-founder of UVXYZI, Design Research Consultancy. He's a registered architect and educator working on the implementation of inclusive design, architectural characteristics of health equity in domestic and institutional settings. Our second participant is Tamika Butler. She is the principal and founder of Tamika L. Butler Consulting. She's a national expert and speaker on issues related to equity, anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion, and organizational behavior and change management. As a principal, she focuses on shining a light on equity, equality, and social justice. And last but not least, Stephen Lewis, which is a urban design principal, ZGF Architects, and president of Thinking Leadership. He's an architect, tireless advocate for social justice and diversity within the field of architecture. And in April of 2011, he launched Thinking Leadership, a consulting practice distinguished for their facilitated approach to collaborative problem solving. Let me ask again that the panelists give me a brief thumbs up that they're ready to go. And I'm going to, again, start the timer and have you guys just jump in.
Good morning. We're dealing with a few challenges with the technology Justin, you were freezing every so often, and Drew, you're a little choppy. So some of the information that you're conveying, maybe it needs to show up in the chat as well, so that resources can be captured that way. I just jumped in as in my nature as a facilitator to begin this conversation, and I'm going to ask Sean and Tamika to join freely. But I did want to say, as we pass the baton from the subject of erasure to sort of our painting a picture of the day in the life, to allow and encourage the participants to walk in our shoes through our stories and experiences, which I think is key to gaining a greater understanding, a broadening of a context through which we judge people and events. And as we become educated and that context widens, we have an opportunity to revisit those judgments and look at them in a more complete and holistic and compassionate way. But erasure has a companion, as Maria was talking, and it occurred to me. Invisibility is the companion to erasure. And sometimes it's as if we're Patrick Swayze in the movie Ghost, and we're swirling around, living our lives, and no one can see us. And as a result, if they can't see us, then we can easily be erased, and there's no human consequence. I just think that that's part of what has to be rectified. We have to be seen. I was with the managing partner of the firm when I gave a keynote back in 2016 in New Orleans, and afterwards we went to a restaurant, and as we walked in, there was a Black family on their way moving toward the exit. And as we passed, I nodded at them as we do, and they nodded back at me. And a few steps later, he asked me, "Do you know those people?" No, I said, "I don't know them, but I see them, and they saw me." And that's part of how we make lemonade out of this lemon. Informal settlements in my travels to everywhere from Tijuana to Kailicha Township in South Africa, and you see these quote unquote shacks scattered along the landscape. But if you look more closely, they're an assemblage of found materials cobbled together with intentionality still. People will take whatever they have and they will impose their will on it, so that even if it's only for them, they have a sense of dignity and self-respect of controlling that environment. So I think a big part of these early steps as we start to peel back the layers and look at our current situation is to see everyone as clearly as we can. With that sort of preamble, I'll open it up to Tamika to make some remarks and then pass it to Sean, and then we'll get this conversation started.
Yeah, thank you. That piece about feeling seen is so personal, and we all know the nod, right? Those of us who heard you telling the story knew that he was going to ask if you knew them, as they often ask us. And I think the way that erasure works, and part of why it creates such tension for those of us who inhabit Black bodies or folks of color, or folks with a disability, or whatever it may be, I think it is because we are so invisible. We are Patrick Swayze and Ghost until we're not. And when we're not, it's instant often that we're a threat. And so you go from being seen not at all to anything you do to challenge or to add or to critically think or to provide feedback or to run or jog or eat Skittles or whatever it may be, makes you visible. And so anytime you're talking about built space, you hear these stories about a Black person being shot and white people saying, well, we just didn't think they were from our neighborhood. And then you learn that actually they were from the neighborhood, right? And not that should matter. Not being from your neighborhood should not mean that I don't belong here, but it's that piece around, I've been here, I am in your neighborhood, but I'm so invisible to you until I'm a threat. And I think when we are doing this work, when we are looking at built environment, how do we center folks who for so many reasons have gotten used to sliding in and out of spaces invisibly, only seen to those who look like us. And, just ending, I think the thing I grapple with is how do we think about claiming space? How do we think about taking space? And my particular field is transportation. So I think about mobility to stay exactly where we are. And that those things all are about built environment. I am on Tongva land. I am a settler, even though my people were enslaved and brought here. And so what would it look like if they were able to stay in place? What would it look like if Indigenous folks were able to stay in place? And so I think as we think about erasure and as we think about how we the space and really move forward, we have to both be thinking about how are we moving freely, but how are we also giving people the right to stay in place?
Great, great. You had a few pause moments in there, which leads me to conclude that this format is like jazz. It leaves spaces in the music, and we have to use our imagination to fill them. Sean, come on in, man.
Yeah, I'm just going to dive in here. I appreciate being on the call with so many brilliant people. Just to give a little bit about my own invisibility on these subjects. I've been a person who has been working for the last 14, 15 years on topics like universal design and inclusive design, specifically in the artifacts of disability design. And it's a very interesting place because even in that context, it's questionable my presence because I don't exist with a known disability or accepted disability to be in that audience or in that space. But it's more critically my role that I take in being an advocate for those things that uplifts my position as an architect and academic to be able to speak above that invisibility. And I try to do that. I always try to shoot above my game. I always try to punch above my weight, however you want to term it. Currently, what I'm currently doing to sort of deal with the issue of invisibility and transversely acknowledgement of things, giving a nod to something, is documenting this sort of physical space and engagement of doctors in Philadelphia, particularly Black doctors who are dealing with COVID-19 issues across the city. How we strategize the system that they have to work with them, which is usually the parking lot of a Black church or the curb along a street that 2 days later gets tear gassed by SWAT, or even understanding what it means as a sort of future forecasting and thinking, what are the developer mechanics to put in place so that these temporary conditions can have a much more permanent way of engaging and establishing new mechanisms for them to work as doctors that we as architects and landscape architects need to be thinking about as a controlling, claiming, marking, holding of space all together. Not necessarily in that order, but at least as something that we're thinking about. And I think for me, this sort of way of thinking resonates because I'm trying to unbuild disenfranchisement. And I think that that's a thing that I'm also working with, is not just the factor of invisibility that's perceived on behalf of another group of people who choose not to see, which is something we should unpack as well here. What it means to be invisible is not the fact that I'm absent or like ghosts that I've passed on, but rather that a group of people choose not to see, but rather also how we deal with the disenfranchisement that comes to those people who have been unseen. And how do we overcome that? And how do we allow for there to be strategy place for them to feel more comfortable and confident in the conditions like that provide healthcare, that provide education, that provide something more than entertainment and media and sport.
Yeah, well said. It takes me back, this conversation takes me back to the metaphor that I shared with you guys as we were chopping it up the other day. And what brought me back to it is just the utter brilliance represented in these panelists here, and many, if not all, on the participating in the call. We have a lot to say, and we say it often to each other. Sean and I never met a word neither of us like. We just keep talking. So, I said that the moment you have self-realization as a Black person, whether you're 2 years old or 10 years old, and it's usually caused by some event, some confrontation, and it jars you out of that paradigm of thinking you're a reflection of what you watch on television. And in my case, as a youth, it was Dennis the Menace or Donna Reed and those family shows, and we identified with them. And then one day, something happens and you're all of a sudden aware that you're different. And with that awareness comes this notion of two parallel universes, a white universe and a black universe. And in that black universe, all of the intellect, all of the good, the bad, and the ugly is happening there, just as it is in the white universe. We by necessity navigate seamlessly between those two universes as a way of surviving. And when we go to the white universe, we can code switch and we can be acceptable and we can maybe be seen somewhat. And then we're back in the black universe and we do what we do there. When George Floyd was murdered, a wormhole opened up between those two universes and all the white folks got sucked into the black universe. And for an instant, they saw everything we've seen and we saw. And with that, the wall between those universes crumbled and we're all in one place right now. So this is our work to move forward. And our work as Black people is the work of a Sherpa, to be a guide, not to lead. This is white people's work to do. 401 years has to be unraveled, repackaged, reinterpreted, understood. And white people should not be timid or afraid to make a gesture or a statement for fear that it's the wrong thing to say or do. If the heart is right, we're very patient, we're very loving. We want you to be successful in doing this work because we will be the beneficiaries of that, as will the entire societies and the world for that matter. 401 years is a long time to unravel, and there's no flipping of the switch, right? So this is a lifelong endeavor. And I think that the more that people who are not familiar and comfortable in a Black environment, the more that we can provide a window into our world, the greater the opportunity for understanding, which brings empathy and compassion and caring, which are the fundamental elements of a foundation upon which we can build structures and systems. Without that foundation on an individual level, my contention is that it's a house of cards and it will eventually crumble. The only way we're going to get where we're trying to go is through a learned and gained familiarity and a love of each other. So, Tamika, what do you got to say?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you and Sean have said, right? This idea of whether or not people see our humanity, it's not because our humanity isn't there. It's because folks are making a conscious choice. And I think we heard Justin bring that up when he talked about his erasure in the video. The thing that is so harmful and so damaging about these erasures is that it is intentional. And so whenever I have white folks in my life, or I'm speaking at a panel or a training and someone's like, I just didn't see it before, but now I know, I always catch them off guard. And I said, well, you chose not to see it. And they're like, well, no, I didn't choose not to see it. It's just, my kids, they go to school and there's no Black kids, or, we don't have kids of color on the soccer team or whatever it is. And so when we had this moment where all of a sudden white people were told, check on your Black friends, and they had to sit and realize they didn't have any Black friends. And so they checked on their Black colleagues, and then their Black colleagues were like, Jeremy never talks to me. Why is he texting me? Right? Because people haven't done that before. And so part of doing this work is active. You have to decide that you are no longer going to ignore it. You have been sucked in through the wormhole. You do see it, but you also have to acknowledge that you chose not to see it before. And now that you have seen it, what are you going to do? And how are you going to face that? It is exhausting. I love being Black. We are a people that always find joy. We will always find joy. I always say, if there's a natural disaster, I'm gonna find a Black woman and follow her, because she's gonna be all right. She's gonna find a way, right? And so we always find joy, but we also know how exhausting it is to travel between those two dimensions. We also know how exhausting it is to be charged, to be paid to design a physical space. And when you get there for your site visit, to know and be conscious of how you have to talk, how you have to dress, how you have to make sure that people know you are there to work, not just to be in space. That is exhausting. And so as people join us in this space, you're going to get tired. You're going to make some mistakes. You are going to feel overwhelmed. but how do you actively keep pursuing this work to be anti-racist? And that is the real work. And as you said, that is white people's work, because we're already doing it. We have no choice if we want to survive and live. And so this is really folks' work to step up and say they are going to do it and they are going to stay committed.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you, Tamika. I think that, you know, another important aspect of that is this sort of discussion of how do you not only mark, but how do you claim and how do you hold space, and hold space on this very subject. Because I think that, you know, critically, I often hear as a Black architect, how there are no Black architects out there of significance, of something that I could think about and see that are important. And I find that intriguing. You know, I spent a lot of time in multiple states across the United States working over many years. I won't say how many, but it's out there, so it's clear. But I'm reminded of how often Black firms are, even though they win awards, just still not registering in the media. And I think that the medium, as purported in the 60s, the medium is still the message. The media controls that way in which we understand philosophically what we should remember, right? And so when you have images in the media that sort of purport a position that, you know, a particular race is always in the background, is always secondhand the subject of the topic at hand, then you sort of ingrain that in within the mechanisms on how you make decisions. And so by seeing television and media in a different way, we can then transition that into our professional lives, right? We can understand that, hey, I'm going to mark and hold space differently because it's already absent. That presence is already absent. And I think that's particularly important in the design field, right? Because I think how we see, or at least how I see my role in academia, and filling the void made by erasure is really to sort of like be my own consultant on this topic. So for example, in the design studio, I don't just talk about the traditional tropes of architecture that I always do, Alvar Aalto and open air systems. I don't just talk about Le Corbusier versus, you know, a variety of other architects from that modern movement. I also try to posit, like, what happens if we think differently about, you know, the Congress for Urban Affairs, which is often referred to as SIAM. How do we think about what if W.E.B. Du Bois had been invited to that conversation, right? I try to think about, okay, in the current context or light, when they say, oh, well, you know, there's these really great architect firms like Zaha Hadid or, you know, MVRDV that we should be talking about in the design studio. I bring up people like Vines Architecture and Evoke Studio that I know are doing great work just as much as Phil Freelon, who unfortunately is no longer with us and was a very vocal person, but we have to keep that message going. We have to keep claiming and holding that space for the discussion of Black architects in the media of academia. And so I think that that's super important when we try to strategize what the agenda should be for maybe doing something like marking and claiming and holding space. It should also include the thought processes that allow us to find joy in talking about ourselves in the mediums that we have, that allow that message to be continually out there, that we exist, that we are not invisible, and that we actually characterize a unique perspective on what design excellence is.
So
and for me, oh, go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
Let me boost you up a little bit.
Yeah.
So this notion of marking, holding, place and space, we don't have time on our little segment to really unpack that, but I think that's something that we should further explore. And does that mean that as a ruin, metaphorically, is inhabited and re-inhabited over time as patterns change, as white flight happens, as blacks, you know, fill gaps, whatever? Is it the space itself, or is it its inhabitants that claim it and make it Black space, for example? I'm just positing that. But before I go any further, I do want to acknowledge my family. Azora Cox has been weighed in, and she was asking or making a statement about discomfort. And this is something that I talked to you all about the other day as well, becoming comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And the quick story is 43 years ago, I was told that in order for me to continue to live, I had to stick an insulin needle in my arm. And overnight, my life changed. I had to do that. I didn't look forward to doing it, but I did it willfully every day because that was how I was going to be okay and survive. And 43 years later, this is a very integral part of my life. So when we talk about getting on this path is not one that has exit ramps necessarily. I mean, it just has cliffs on either side of it that you can fall off of. But the path, when you're on it, is a righteous path that changes your paradigm and who you are and how you live your life from this day forward. So this is not something that we're going to address with some prophylaxis or some therapy and then we'll be okay and we get off. This is a lifelong commitment to open your eyes to see. You're getting a little window into it as we have these conversations. And we all, which is kind of funny as panelists, have so much to say each that we could take 8 hours of the day and Tamika, Sean, and myself would just be still talking. 8 hours later, y'all be sleeping, we would still be talking. But you know, I think that idea of what is a welcoming space that we Black people and all people might not have to think about in terms of whose is it. It just is, and we all inhabit it equally.
I think, Stephen, to that point, we have to acknowledge that that's not something that can be designed with the perspective that is typically talked about, which is involvement of the Black community, but rather should be spoken from the point of engagement, right? And the difference between the two, between involvement and engagement, is involvement is something that's done to the Black community from the perspective of outside designers. Engagement is something that's done with them. And I think that when we transition in how we talk about what our roles are as designers, whether I'm a landscape architect, an architect, an urban designer, all of the above, it should be a matter of engagement that allows people to participate in what we're doing and seeing themselves reflected in the work that is part of the outcome. In other words, they're not invisible on the naming plaque. They're not invisible in the work itself. Their name should be there so that their children can see the presence as well. And so the people become part of the space. They're never absent one from the other. And I think that that's this analytical misconception. You know, there's an intersectionality that's talked about commonly right now. And I find that intersectionality is a new term, but an old term, because it's also interdependence, right? And a realization that interdependence fundamentally is what designers must work towards, understanding that people are not separate for analyses, that they live together, they overlap. I shop at Acme, so does somebody else who might not have the same point of view, but we intersect commonly, we cross paths. And that is what the design should be about. It should be about the intentionality of that intersection and not just thinking about it, but the action of it, right? One that proposes something forward to fix our discomforts so that we can find commonality and intersectionality and interdependence properly.
And I think, as you said, that takes being okay with discomfort, right? I always tell people as a transportation planner, the intersection is where the action happens, right? And so when you think about intersectionality, and when you go out to a site and you see like people are dying at this intersection, what can we do? Do we, you know, extend the walk sign? Do we extend the curb? Do we do this? We can, as professionals, be like, you know what, this is just complicated. Let's just go mid-block and put in a parklet. Like maybe we should put in a parklet, but we still got to solve why there are tons of crashes and collisions at the intersection. And so people have to be comfortable with that discomfort, that when you get to the intersections of things, there's conflict, there's friction, and there's struggle, and that is hard. And I think, you know, I was with a group of women who came together in Salzburg, Austria, a couple of years ago, and it was public health professionals, built environment professionals, and we talked about coming up with a framework that provided 3 steps when you want to do this work. 1, you have to create a brave space. So to your point, being safe isn't good enough. All the people who have faced depressions, to live their full selves, they have to be brave every day. If you are a Black woman and you are having a child and you know the infant mortality rate is higher, it is brave to go to the hospital to have that child. If you are trans and you are using the bathroom that fits with your gender identity and you know you may be physically hurt, you are being brave, right? And so the least folks who don't face oppression every day can do is be brave. Get out of this desire to be comfortable, to be safe, and be brave. And then you have to confront power and confront privilege. Equity is this buzzword, but you can't get to equity if you're not talking about who has power, who's making decisions, who's setting culture, who's deciding who gets what and who gets left out, and then what is the privilege involved. why are you thinking something isn't a problem? Oh, because it doesn't impact you. Then what is that privilege, and how does that privilege perpetuate who gets to use and inhabit and move through space? And so you have to be brave, and you have to confront power and privilege.
Great. I think we're maybe at our time. I'll depend on Drew for the time check. If that is the case, I will accept both yours and Sean's remarks as final remarks. If we got another minute or two.
I would not want to interrupt, Stephen. So if you all would like to take a minute or two to close out, feel free.
I'm just trying to help you out, bro. You know, keep on schedule. It's a real pleasure and an honor, really, to be placed in a position where our voices can be elevated and hopefully land on receptive ears and hearts. More importantly, we've got a lot to do, and as painful as a lot of this reckoning has been, and particularly as it relates to the deaths of Black people at the hands of police, there's also this incredible electricity in the air, one of excitement about this moment. It's an all hands on deck moment. We're at the point where Design as Protest, DAP, Brian Lee are making demands on academic institutions and firms who have to really reckon with where they've been, who they've been, and where they're going, and who they will be. And so this will not go quietly into the night. This is work that we're lighting the fuse to, and just couldn't be happier to exhaust myself on this issue right now with my colleagues. Sean, Tamika, final word?
I would
Yes,
just say,
I think,
go ahead, Sean.
go ahead, Tamika, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go, Sean. Sean's frozen. You go,
It looks
Tamika.
like Sean's frozen. I would just say thanks to the organizers of this conference. It's always so humbling to be part of something with heavyweights and folks I admire, like everybody on my panel and the first panel. And then for the folks watching, especially for the students, you are going to constantly be told that there is not a place for you in this work. And there is a place for you. All of us are a testament that there is a place for you. And you have a right to, again, move through space as you see fit until you find where you want to be. And you also have a right to stay in place. And so we have to support each other. And there will be many cuts, but together, finding mentors, finding community, we will be able to move forward and to fill our hearts and our spirits to do this work that is our ancestors' wildest dreams.
Thank you. Sean, are you back? Sean's still frozen. All right, Drew.
I think I am. I froze there for a second. Sorry. Yeah, probably saw me all popping. Probably saw me popping and locking all over the place, trying to figure out what's going on. I think that, I want to encourage one basic thing for people, because I think that for me, it's always the same thing, and that's to continue to shine a light, whatever that light may be, to realize that you have power and activity in the work that you do. Know what that intentionality is for it. Be conscious of that and move forward with that. So if it's something as simple as diagramming, know what the effects are of that diagram on a variety of things. Look outside of the places where it's obvious and shine a light on the places where it's not. Ask questions, continue to ask questions on the engagements are of the work, and how can you begin to affect things that are previously not seen, and just to continue the other side of whatever it is that you do. And that's a very important thing. It's an important narrative about inclusion, and how we see others who cannot be seen as an important mechanism for what we have as designers. I'll save more for the panel.
Thank you both. And again, to the organizers, this is wonderful discussion.
Well, thank you to both sets of panel members. extremely engaging discussion. I admit, I was having trouble keeping time because, I was really enthralled with what you guys were saying. And to the participants, know that this is, again, something to kind of whet the appetite. It is now up to you all to continue the discussion in the subsequent breakout rooms. And I'm going to transfer the floor to Heidi Obantu-Saul, who is our open space facilitator, who will now guide you through how we'll be working together over the next 2 days and the rest of the day.
Hi, and welcome everybody. My name is Heidi. I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I stand on Tewa Pueblo land, and I grew up here as well in the Southwest. So just want to point out, I've seen so many references to resources. We actually have already set up an open Google Doc in the resources library, which is the space right below the main space. Please, as you think of things throughout the day, please add those resources there. We also will be sure to capture this Zoom chat, and it will get put somewhere and published and shared back to all of you. So wonderful, all of the resources that have been shared. One housekeeping item before I start talking about how we're going to do open space today. Given the nature of the time and the types of conversations that we imagine will happen today, we decided to put together some recommended guidelines for engagement. They do talk about things like getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and how to be respectful, etc. That list is located on the main screen under engagement guidelines. And the one thing I would just say about that is that we're going to create together today as participants the safe space that we're all going to talk in. It's all of our responsibility to create a safe space and the space for all voices to be heard. And that way we can have meaningful conversations over the course of the day. So I encourage you to take a moment at some point to go and look at those engagement guidelines. They're also located in the resource library space. The other piece is a little housekeeping about making sure you all take care of yourself today. We're in Zoom. Normally we'd be sitting in a circle in a big, convention center or meeting space. We have some advantages being in Zoom. You can be on mute and nobody can hear what's going on in your household. You can step away from your camera and you can still hear what's going on. You can still hear the conversation. And though we lose some intimacy because we can't see each other and shake hands and share a cup of coffee together, we may, through the course of the day, meet your pet or your child or your partner. So it's fine that we're all at home. Don't feel too uptight about how you need to present. You'll see me during the day get up and leave, and you know that I'm going to come back and that I'm listening. So be sure to take care of yourself. We don't have a planned lunch break. If you need to get food and feed yourself while you're listening and while you're participating. So just to really give permission to be yourself during this time when we're all meeting from our respective home spaces. So as we begin, as we move into open space and creating our agenda, I'm just going to ask you all to take a moment, settle in your seat, close your eyes, take a deep breath in and out, and settle into the space that you're in, and take a moment to absorb the conversations that you've just heard over the last hour. Let them sink in a little bit before we move on into the activity of setting our agenda for the day. As you open your eyes, imagine that we're sitting in large concentric circles in a room with a big space in the middle. and that you can literally turn your head and look around and see all the people that are here today gathered for these important conversations. The way that I suggest you do this a little bit in Zoom is if you go to the top right of your Zoom screen and you click on gallery view, you'll get a whole page worth of people. And if you click the button to the right, you'll see the other pages of the faces and the people that are here today. And I encourage you to take a moment and do that just to see. I can see my set of faces here, but take a look around at everybody that's here. And one thing that I can almost guarantee, and you can wave, I see Chloe waving, I'm waving at Chloe, is that someone that you're waving at right now or seeing for the first time, seeing their smile that you don't know yet, there's a really good chance, even with over 500 of us here today, that that person will become a colleague or maybe even a friend. That's one of the things I love about facilitating open space, is the way that we all get to meet each other where we are. So all of us will be co-creating our experience from here on out over the next 2 days. We're going to use a process called open space technology. It's been around for 30 years. It was developed by a gentleman named Harrison Owen. He planned a standard conference, took a year, get the people with the papers, the important speakers, all of those types of things. What he really observed at the end of that, and part of that is based on where he came from, which I won't go into due to time, is that the really good and important stuff happened during the coffee breaks. It happened when people got to speak to whom they wanted to. It happened when they bumped into people in the hallway and had a surprise conversation. That's where they made the connections they needed to make. It's where they got the information they needed. It may have been where they got the funding they needed for their project, etc. And he thought, isn't there a way that we could create a way for people to gather that's coffee break energy all the time? And if you look up Harrison Owen, you'll see that he's written many books on self-organizing. And he would say that we all self-organize all the time, even those of us that work in highly structured organizations. We still, if we have any kind of a choice of the thing we might do first, we're going to pick the thing that we want to do most likely before the thing that we have to do. So the deal about today is you're all charged with doing what you want to do. That could be something that's going to challenge you a little bit, but you do not have to go to any of the talks. You're going to go to the ones that you want to go to. And he came up with a process that's based on a framework of several universal elements: a circle, a bulletin board, a marketplace, and breath. For our purposes, a circle is a form that reflects respect for everybody in the room, and it also encourages dialogue. All of our ancestors, if you go far enough back, spent some time hanging around in a circle around a fire. In doing this type of facilitation live for a long time, I can tell you that the minute a group of people walk into a room and see that the chairs are in a circle, the energy immediately is shifted from rows with a person at the front. So we're sitting here in our virtual circle. The bulletin board is a place where in our communities people post things for sale, courses that are happening, about a lost dog, you name it, you can find things on a bulletin board. It's where you go to see what's going on. Our bulletin board, which I'll show you in a minute, is an open Google Sheet where in a moment, those of you who would like to call a session will be typing in your session name and your name, and that's where people will go to look and see which session they'd like to attend. The marketplace are the rooms that are listed to the left If you scroll down below the opening closing circle, you're going to see 3 blocks of sessions, A through Z rooms. So we have a total of 81 possible session meeting places for today. So you're going to have a lot of things to choose from. Breath, for me, is, especially in an unconference like this, is that it resembles life in that it will follow you as participants, your pace, your desires, what you want to talk to, etc., gathered at this time, rather than a preset agenda. So you're all going to be creating with your breath as you announce your sessions what you want to talk about today. This is something I'm not fond of doing. I'm just really starting to learn how to facilitate in Zoom, but I am going to share my screen to show you a few things to make it easier once we move into the interactive part. So I'm going to share my screen. I want to share this one. So, Drew, give me a thumbs up. You can see my screen. Thank you. Okay, so here we are. If you look over here to the left in the main space, here we all are, a bunch of bobbleheads sitting together. Imagine that we're in a circle. Our bulletin board is actually in the tabs up here across the top. You can see there's announcements, there's agenda edit and agenda view. If you're going to call a session, you would click on agenda edit, and you can see here's a space. You will type into this space the name of your session and then add your name. Over here, it lets you know where to find you. Session 1, space A, and so forth. This wall goes all the way down to the end of the day, ending at 4, space Z. We'll be filling in all of these spaces when we get into agenda creation in a few minutes. The marketplace is here to the left. Oops, you got to scroll in a different. So here you can see we have the resource library. We have our videographer who's going to be gathering your thoughts about the event after we end today. We've got networking spaces that you can meet in, like hallway conversations. And then we start down here with the session breakout spaces. Once the topics are written up, our fabulous KikoChat inventor and tech guy, Lucas, will be plopping the title sessions into these spaces. So above session 1 space B will be the name of the session written out. So that'll be another way that you can find where you'd like to go. And breath, also in KikoChat, is your capacity to move yourself from room to room. It's a platform that I really like for doing open space because you're responsible for moving yourself to another space. Some of you have been shown this, but basically when you want to move to another room, you just scroll down, you click on the space, and just let it open up. And you'll see that there's a new green button up here. And if you click on that, it will ask you to leave the old Zoom that you were in and join the new one. So every single one of these spaces has its very own Zoom room, but you will be moving yourself through from room to room on your own. So I have to get back to the main space. So to organize our time or to guide our time together today, there are 4 principles and 1 law of open space. And these are the things that Harrison Owen came up with. So over here, there's a tab that's called About Open Space. These are my open space posters. Normally you'd see these hanging on the wall envision of everybody in the circle. If we were in a face-to-face place, here they are, just a picture of them. So it starts with whoever comes are the right people. And that applies to both the event and the session. So we know that all the right people are here today for Cut Fill. If you call a session, you know that everybody that shows up in your session wants to be there because they get to choose where they want to go today. If there are only a few people, you can have a very rich conversation. If there are a lot of people, make sure to give everybody a chance to speak. Some of the best open space conversations happen when 2 people show up at a topic, at a session topic. So it's not about the number of people. It's knowing that those that have shown up are very interested in the topic that you've presented. Whatever happens is the only thing that could have. And this is a nod to the fact that real solutions and dialogue happen outside of a preset agenda. So it encourages us to hold whatever agenda we have for Cut Fill, for the session that we're attending or calling, to hold that agenda really lightly so as to make room for the new thing that could come in and really change things up. So hold any agenda you have about today as lightly as possible. Whenever it starts is the right time is a nod to the nature of creativity and spirit. You all know as creative professionals that you can't decide, I'm going to solve this particular issue next Thursday at 2 in the afternoon. So whenever that impetus for creativity and solution comes is the right time. So if you're calling a session, you've gotten to your space and the first person has shown up, go ahead and start their conversation. You don't need to wait for everybody to arrive or for the important person to arrive like we might have to in meetings that we all attend during the course of our workday. So meeting time frames sort of are out the window for today. The end of that is when it's over, it's over. And that points to the paying attention to the energetic conclusion of a conversation. I don't imagine today that any of you will get together and in 20 minutes decide, okay, there's no more to talk about around this topic. But if you did, you would not need to stay in your space for the whole 50 minutes to an hour that we've allotted. You could get up and go somewhere else. Conversely, if the conversation is still going strong at the time that is when you're needing to move to a new conversation, you're welcome to keep that conversation going. You can stay there and talk. Unless you've convened another session, then you need to be there. The other option is in all of the spaces, there are attendee sign-in sheets that you can use if you'd like. You can exchange contact information and you can keep the conversation going outside of Cut Fill. We encourage you to do that. So notice the energetics. If it's time to move and boy, this conversation is just really being good, getting good or is in the middle of being so productive, do consider the ways that you might continue your conversation, and that might include into tomorrow. Important law, the one law of open spaces, the law of 2 feet or the law of motion and responsibility. And it says that if you're in a session and you're not learning, you're not contributing, it's not what you imagined it would be, it's actually your responsibility to get up and move yourself to another Zoom room. We don't want anybody hanging out in spaces today that they don't want to be in. It's all about being in the place that you want to be for the best impact. That law brings into consideration the 2 insects, the butterfly and the bumblebee. The bumblebee, we know in nature, pollinates. So you also have the option to hop in and out of several sessions if you'd like. I imagine you all will feel some stress around the fact that there are more sessions that you'd like to attend than you can go to. That's that's just the deal. But you are allowed to pop in and out of sessions. That's not considered rude or unusual. Butterflies are still points. Sometimes the best conversation you can have with somebody at a conference is a conversation with a person who's sitting out in the hallway and not in a session. If you feel full from a session that you've been in, feel free to go and hang out in the resource library or one of the networking rooms. Don't feel that you have to be in a session the whole time. Everything runs on passion and responsibility. Go to what you're passionate about, take responsibility for your experience, and be prepared to be surprised. We're all here today. I'm going to stop sharing my screen to talk about that question of, and I'm paraphrasing it, what is there for landscape architect professionals and workers and everybody involved in the whole system to do now under these unusual circumstances that we're in that can change things for the better? That's a big question. As we've heard from the panelists, there are so many different topics that you could talk about today. We have 3 session times. We have 81 different spaces. I think there's a chance that there might be more types of conversations you'd like to have than 81. But today, with the limitations that we have, that's the number that we're going to be able to have. And that might still be, plenty of them. Each of the spaces has a Google Doc with a summary, a session summary form. We would ask that the convener of the session make sure that that form gets completed. And that's one of the ways to help eliminate a little bit of FOMO, fear of missing out, is that if you wanted to go to a session that you weren't able to, you will get to see the session summary sheet, and maybe even the Zoom chat is copied into that document as well. So after the event, all of those things will be compiled so that you can see what other people talked about. So definitely make sure if you're in a session that someone completes that session summary form. I'm just going to mention it again. None of these sessions will be recorded. We want to maintain confidentiality for people. We want these conversations to be rich and diverse, and even some of them are going to be hard. So please don't worry that you're being recorded. I think that was said in one of the emails, but I wanted to say it verbally again. As I mentioned, each space has a sign-in sheet. That's only for if you as a group that are meeting would like to stay in touch with each other. It's an easy way to quickly go put in your names and emails, and somebody can download it, and then you can stay in touch with each other. You don't have to do that. So now we're going to set our agenda. We have a slight time constraints. We'll see if we can get started on time. So think for a moment about something that you'd like to call a session on or have a conversation about. I was fascinated to read the many responses to the questions that were in the registration process. Some that caught my eye just to show the diversity of what might be talked about today are how to center environmental justice in the landscape discussion, race and class inequity in access to education of landscape architecture, work-life balance, working from home with the kids, how landscape architecture can be a tool for healing settler colonial trauma, indigenous landscapes in the 21st century, and what does it mean to face these issues as a sole practitioner? That gives you a sense of the scope. No topic that falls under the umbrella of what are we going to do as landscape architects as we move forward is off the table. So I just want to give express permission to talk about a broad range of things today. So here are the directions. If you have a topic you want to leave, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. If you go down to the bottom of Zoom, a panel will open up, and one of the choices is participants. And I can see that there's 442 of us here right now. If you click on that, you'll see the option to raise your hand. As people raise their hands, I'm able to see you in a list. I will call your name. I'll ask you to unmute yourself. And in order to make this quick, I would love for you to say your name, where you are, to give us a spatial sense of, where are you calling from, what city? And then one sentence, just one sentence about the topic you'd like to talk about. When you're done, go to the agenda wall edit, choose a space, they're all the same, and a time and a space, type in your session topic and your name, and then leave that space. We want to be mindful of the fact that often if you get too many people typing into a Google Doc, it can crash, and we don't want that to happen. So once you've typed in your topic, please get out of that particular window, from that particular tab. Those of you who want to see the topics that are being posted, not just hear them, can go and look at Agenda View. It's set up so that as people are typing into Agenda Edit, it will start showing up in Agenda View, and you'll be able to see the topics as they get populated. I'm just reading my notes because we've got this technical things that we want to deal with. So I would ask everybody that's here to listen, hear what people are suggesting. One of the ways that we can maybe avoid overflowing the spaces we have is maybe somebody has called a session and it was something that you were thinking about talking about. So you just decide that you're going to go join them in their session. Also, sessions can be combined. If people think, oh, wow, that sounds like mine, and you can see their name in their Zoom window, you can private message them and ask if they'd like to combine combine those two sessions. So I'm going to start now, and I'll start calling names. Remember to unmute yourself, and remember to keep it as short as possible. And we're going to start with Betsy.
Hi, I'm Betsy. Is this the right Betsy?
Yes.
Betsy Loring. I'm from Worcester, Massachusetts, and I am actually a science museum exhibit developer, kind of crashing your world. I worked on an exhibit with a landscape architecture and regional planning professor. We did a ton of community engagement.
And what would you like to do?
So I'd like to talk about whether these community engagement tools in the museum world have benefit for community engagement in the landscape architecture world.
Thanks, Betsy. Next is Chloe Hawkins.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia, Nelson Bergholtz Landscape Architects, and I would like to talk about how structures of project funding can, on the one hand, reinforce white supremacy in landscape architectural practice, or make way for equitable design practice.
Thanks, Chloe. Robert Colon, it looks like.
Hi, everyone. I'm Robert. I'm interested in running a session on people with invisible disabilities. So typically non-mobility related disabilities like type 1 diabetes, which I have.
Thank you very much. And I don't see any more raised hands. And I'm thinking with 400 people, certainly. Okay, here we go. Michelle Mitchell.
Hi, I'm Michelle Mitchell. I'm in Washington, D.C. I would like to do a session on how we share public spaces with the homeless.
Great, thank you so much. Who's next?
Heidi, I can't figure out how to raise my hand, but this is Drew.
So Drew, go right ahead and announce your
I'd like to
session.
call a session on intergenerational leadership.
Great. So to raise your hand, go to the bottom of your Zoom screen. One of the choices you can click on is participants. And if you click on participants, you should see the option of raising, it's like a little blue hand that you can click on, and it will show up and let me know that you'd like to talk.
Sorry, I'm trying to press that and it's not showing up.
Okay, Ray, go right ahead. Thanks for jumping in.
Hi, I'm Ray. I'm in Philadelphia, and I'm interested in a session on when there's tension in community engagement between what the community says they want and when what they're saying they want is bigoted.
Thanks. Ashley Schwemmer.
Hello, Ashley Schwimmer. I'm in New York City with Westate. I would like to have a conversation about how to talk to clients about equality and bringing the community into the design process.
Great, thank you. Who's next? If you can't find your hand, okay, great.
This is Julie Shapiro. Oh, sorry, I'll put my camera on. I'm in Boston at Tool Design Group. And I would like to talk about landscape architecture education and how structures in that need to change for an anti-racist curriculum.
Great, thanks, Julie. Who's next? Speak up if you can't raise your hand.
Hi.
Hi, Nancy.
Yeah, this is Nancy Jones. I'm a Ball State MLA student. And I'd like to discuss working with Indigenous communities in spaces that are not officially Indigenous, that is reclaiming space that was historically taken from Indigenous communities and reclaiming that as you know, in the context of design and planning.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. Go put it on the agenda wall. Who else?
I'd like to echo Heidi's comments. Students, jump in. We heard from our panelists that you guys are the future. Make your voices heard right now.
We've got Sophia.
Hi, I'm here with my baby, so I'm just going to leave the camera off. But I would like to join a discussion about sole practitioners and sort of business model, like alternative business models and fee formats that can better facilitate equity in design, especially for like residential design and residential landscape architecture.
Great, thank you, Sophia.
I'm in the Bay Area in California.
Okay. Okay, Mawinyi Eli Kindley, and please pronounce your name correctly when you come on the screen. Sorry.
It's Mwinyi Elkindi in San Francisco, California. But one thing that I really wanted to talk about was Mark Clayman, Hold Your Space. So maybe if I could get Sean to hop in on that and have that conversation just to, you know, elaborate a little bit more on that, I would appreciate that. So I guess it's up to him kind of.
Thank you. Gabrielle.
Yes, hi, I'm Gabriella. I'm a senior at Barnard College studying urban studies and sustainability. And I want to talk a bit more about sustainable green infrastructure and how we talk about holistic sustainability in terms of green infrastructure.
Great, thank you. Mila.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Mila with ModiGram. I'm in DC, and I would like to discuss schoolyards and empty schoolyards now during the pandemic, and how landscape architects can influence our children and our future generation in solving some of the issues that we're facing now.
Thank you. Lendell Irvin.
Hello, I'm Lendell Irvin. I am a classmate of Nancy Jones. Hi, Nancy, I see you there. I'm also interested in maybe a broader topic here of what are ways we can brainstorm the process of decolonization of landscapes, meaning how do we begin inclusion and what does that look like in best practices or processes?
Thank you. I may have accidentally just taken some people's hands down. So if you see that your little hand isn't up anymore, please put it back up there again. Zoe. Be sure you unmute.
Okay.
Zoe. Oh, there's Zoe.
Sorry.
Okay, great. Hi.
Okay, I'm unmuted now. I am calling in from Charlottesville, which is Monacan land, and I would like to talk about the racist roots of a lot of our land policies and what we can do about that.
Thank you. Camille.
Hi, this is Camille Wildberger from Dallas, Texas. I see a few former classmates of mine on here, so hi to you guys and everyone else. I'd like to talk about safety in parks. I know usually we think about safety in parks from like crime and criminal actors, but now during this pandemic, I'd like to talk about like how can landscape architecture still give form to community aspirations during a time of social distancing and civil unrest and those boundaries of safety.
Thanks, Camille. Anna Mitchell.
Hi, I'm in Alabama, and I'm a student at Auburn University, and I also work for a landscape architecture firm, Scholl Engineering, and I'd like to talk about work-life balance when you're a professional going back to school.
Great. And Rita.
Before you call someone else, I just want to let people know you have to then, after you tell people your topics, please go to the agenda edit and actually type in your topics. We're seeing a lot of people say their topics, but not actually type in their topics.
Yeah, and also please include your name. There's a couple that don't have names, so go double check and make sure that you put your name there. So now, Rita.
Hi, I'm Rita Schiller. I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth area. I'm interested in talking about how to enrich the curriculum for landscape architecture at HBCUs.
Thanks, Rita. Jean?
Hi, this is Jean with GGN in Seattle, and I am interested in talking about accountability measures for companies or groups of people who are trying to instigate systemic change, and how you can both instill accountability measures but then maintain it. Yeah.
Thanks, Jean. Ayana?
Hi, my name is Ayana Belk. I'm a student at K-State. I'm in Manhattan, Kansas. And I want to talk about how we can better prepare students of color to work for predominantly white firms, and how we can better prepare predominantly white firms to accept students of color.
Thanks, Ayana. Jonathan Poor.
Hi, I'm Jonathan. I'm in Cambridge, Massachusetts, recent graduate from Harvard Graduate School of Design. And I want to talk about how we can design against displacement.
Thank you. Jeff McLean.
Oops, sorry, I'm trying to get.
That's okay.
Okay, I'm Jeff McLean, I'm in San Francisco, and I like to talk about design studios and how the projects that are taught in design studios can address the issues that the panelists were talking about, particularly around erasure and editing and the kinds of ways that we can engage those issues for our students.
Great, thanks, Jeff. And Priyanka.
Hello, everyone. I'm Priyanka. I'm from Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm a student of landscape architecture at the University of Virginia. I wanted to discuss about, lately we've been talking about equity. So I want to know more about what is equity and how can it be incorporated in the landscape.
Thank you. And Ron?
Hello, I'm Ron. I'm training from New York.
I couldn't figure out how to message people individually, so maybe I want to piggyback on Rita's conversation and join her chat and talk about engagement with HBCUs with firms as an HBCU graduate.
Great, thanks, Ron. That's a great way to combine a session. Appreciate you doing that. Okay, we still have more spaces and we're actually doing well on time. Is there something that you've been wanting to talk about or that you feel curious about or that feels important to you during this time that you'd love to find out if there's somebody else that would like to talk about that with you? Stephanie.
There's a conference room.
Hi, sorry, my son's here. I'm Stephanie in Boston, Massachusetts, in Brookline, Massachusetts, actually, but I'm interested in talking about how to push for equity inclusion in private developments that are building in the public realm.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. And Sonia.
Hi, I'm Sonia. I'm in New York City, in Brooklyn. One of the sentences that the panelist said really struck me about being invisible until you become a threat. And I would like to talk about that. And I don't know anything about that, so I would like to invite people who know something to join that session.
Great modeling for asking a question and inviting people to come and talk with you, Sonia. Thanks.
Heidi, I'm going to chime in for a moment with one bit of housekeeping. If you've already posted your topic on Agenda Edit, please go to Agenda View so that other people can now get in and edit the document. We have so many people here today. Google Docs has a limit for how many people can be editing at one time. So once again, if you're done, go to Agenda View after you've posted your topic. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Lucas. Molly.
Hi there, I'm a student at Ohio State University, and I've been thinking a lot in this time about how there's a separation between my personal participation in conferences such as this and what I actually speak about with my classmates and boardmates.
I just muted myself.
So I don't know exactly what that topic would be, but maybe bringing the conversation into our academic spaces as students.
That sounds good. Thanks, Molly. Mamata.
Hi, I am Mamata I'm from Confluence in Minneapolis. I want to talk about, we've been informed, we've been pretty much following up and trying to update ourselves on the inequity and injustice around. I want to understand how we could proceed forward to work on equity in the workspace.
Thank you. Mara.
Hi, my name is Mara. I'm a landscape architecture student at Florida International University. And I wanted to talk more about how us as designers of public space or just designers in general can contribute to political activism.
Thanks, Mara. Just a reminder, again, if you've already typed in your session name, if you've called one, if you could please click out of the edit section so that we don't have a crash happen. We don't want to have that happen. Diana.
Hi, my name is Diana. I'm an MLA from the University of Cincinnati, and I'm interested in talking about looking at landscape architecture case studies, like developments that we have seen done in the past that have had lasting impacts on communities of color and served as just examples of how erasure works and how we can hold ourselves accountable, which might actually play into the topic that Jonathan Kerr is going to lead a discussion on. So I think I might just go that way.
Okay, thanks, Diana. Lida.
Hi, yeah, my name is Lida, and I'm a student at the University of Texas in Austin. And I'm a student, so I'm not an expert, so I definitely invite anyone who does have knowledge or experience in this area, but I'm really interested in agriculture. You know, equitable agriculture, so in urban environments, food deserts, things of that nature. So how we can reclaim land for agriculture in an equitable way is something that I'm really interested in.
Thank you. Jason.
Hi. Hey everyone, I'm Jason in Brooklyn, New York at MNLA. And I kind of just wanted to talk about informal settlements in Latin America and Africa, all over the world. It seems like a really good topic to discuss.
Thanks, Jason. Clara?
Hi there. I'm Clara Kwan. I'm in Atlanta, originally from Toronto. I'd like to talk about or open up a conversation on working with environmental nonprofits, which are predominantly white, and how they work in Black communities and how we can shift the power towards the Black communities doing work in those communities, what that might look like, problems that arise.
Thank you. Nancy. Nancy Jones.
Yes, hi. I'm just having trouble getting into the agenda part to write my topic.
Are you clicking on the one that says edit instead
I don't even,
of the one that says view?
Okay, I'm not sure where the menu is for these choices.
If you're on the main page,
okay,
there are tabs across the very top of the page.
Okay.
And it says announcements, agenda edit, agenda view, engagement guidelines. Do you see those? In the Kiko, not in Zoom.
Okay.
On the Kiko platform that should be behind you. You see it now?
I will get to that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for asking, Nancy.
Okay.
I bet there's other people with the same question, so no worries. Marissa. Marissa Engel or Angel? Okay, we'll go to Kristen.
Hi, my name is Kristen. I'm currently in Boston, and I'm interested in talking about land reparations in particular, and I think this is related to the comment about agriculture as well as decolonization. So thinking of land reparations as well as joining forces with the broader agriculture, kind of urban ag and agriculture movement led by people of color.
Thank you. Cassie, I apologize if I'm not saying that right.
That's okay. It's Casey.
Casey, okay. I think it could be either one.
I know. It's yeah, that's all good. I am curious about, and I'm not quite sure how to articulate this, so I'm open to help, is how landscape architecture and community engagement can help to support a community also build like community financial structures in their redevelopment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I bet you there will be somebody who knows what you're talking about.
Yeah, help me.
So thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah.
And actually, and there's the spaces in the Google Sheet text wrap, so you can type more. You can write a little bit more. And Kelly.
Hi, my name is Kelly O'Clesson, and I own Groundsmith Collective here in Hyattsville, Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C. I want to talk about appropriation and design, and I specifically want to talk about where our design ideas come from and how they can be developed ethically and can actually uplift and pay homage and respect the history of where they've come from.
Thanks, Kelly. And Maria?
Hi, my name is Maria Grina. I work at Olin. I live in Philly, but I'm actually in Minneapolis right now. I also don't fully know how to articulate this, but I'm very interested in Black Healing. I've attended an event in West Philly called Black Healing Matters recently, and just last weekend I went to the George Floyd Memorial here in Minneapolis, which is also a Black healing space, and it's incredibly powerful. So I'm just interested in, I don't think I want to facilitate this conversation. I want to listen about how, as designers, we can support the need and importance for Black healing.
Thanks, Maria. Erin?
Hi, this is Erin DeBose. I'm with OJB Landscape Architecture, and although I don't claim to be an expert in this topic, I would like to open up a conversation about how to use materials in the landscape to avoid designing exclusive spaces. So focusing in on material choices, especially.
Thanks. And Nathan?
Hi, I'm Nathan Foley from Charlottesville, Virginia, work at MBW. Want to have a discussion about the role of private philanthropy in shaping agendas for public space. And this may have overlap with Chloe's suggested session, so I'll put it in one of the later sessions, but also want to talk about the role of landscape architecture practice in upholding that reliance on public philanthropy.
Thanks. And Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna Hooker from Philadelphia. I would just love to have a conversation about landscape and memory, kind of specifically thinking about, you know, all of the changes and the calls to action we're seeing with memorials and spaces that are memorializing something that isn't deserving of that land, and what we can do with those spaces in the future to create, you know, more inclusive, inviting environments that kind of directly respond to what used to be there.
Thanks a lot. And one more, Annie, and then we'll move on. Annie Berglund? Okay. So there are a lot of choices today. I imagine there will be multiple sessions that you'd like to go to, and you can't go to them all, but don't worry, folks are going to fill out their session summary forms.
Hi, I'm sorry.
Okay, Annie.
I'm so sorry, I didn't realize I had to mute the screen as well as my phone. I'm Annie Berglund. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I work for MNLA. And we've been having some conversations about design vocabulary and design references that we use and their implications and histories. So I would like to add that to the list.
Great. Thanks, Annie. So if you called a session, make sure that you've gone into Agenda Edit and added it into a time slot. We will not ring bells or tell you when to move. We figure you're all adults. Somebody in your group surely is a clock watcher, and they'll know that it's time to go to a new space. The only people who have the responsibility to show up in a space at the time that they said they would be there are the agenda conveners, or the session conveners. So if you're a convener, please be in the space that you said you were going to be in for your topic at the start of that time to welcome anybody who wants to talk, to speak with you. We'll meet back here in this Zoom room, the main room, Zoom room, at 4 o'clock for a short closing. Then the networking rooms will open, and we have a very cool thing we're doing. There's going to be DJs from Germany who will be DJing live for us, and that will be live streamed into the networking room so that you can have a little music and chatting together after the event. For the session conveners, just a reminder, once you go to your room, you want to click on the new, on the Zoom join video for the room that you're in. So you're going to want to click on that button. You probably will get a message from Zoom saying you're already in a meeting. Do you want to leave it? You do. You want to leave this meeting that we're in now. And then it will prompt you to go into the new Zoom meeting. Some of those pop-ups will come behind the Zoom meeting that you're in right now. So just know that, look for some pop-ups that might be behind what you're looking on the screen. Everybody else, take a gander at the session 1. Choose where you'd like to go and go ahead and move there right now. Just so you know, I'll be available via video in the resource library throughout the next 3 hours. So if you've got questions or you want to talk about something,
can I just ask, I'm sorry to interrupt. There was a good question that came up in the chat about, because the final session of the day only has a couple of entries, if we should redistribute some of the topics.
Absolutely, and I leave that up to the conveners, but that's not a bad idea. So I trust that a couple of you will go that are in session 1 and maybe shuffle your sessions down. And that could partly be because it's easy to just see the screen for session 1 without scrolling down. Also, if you called a session in session 1 and you haven't moved it and nobody shows up because they're going to other sessions, you're welcome to move your session down to session 3. Thanks for bringing that up, Chloe. I'm used to working with a wall that everybody you can see all at once, so it is a little tricky with the scrolling.
Heidi, may I also suggest that if there are spaces at the end of the day, such as session 3 or even session 2, that people feel free to keep entering new sessions.
Yep, I was going to say that.
Later that time. Apologies.
Yeah. Normally, these sessions would be written on cardstock and you'd be taping them up underneath the time slots. So if there are still spaces open, as Sandra said, please feel free to add a session. That also lets you all, the rest of you know, to just look at one session block at a time. Look at session 1, decide where you're going to go during the 10-minute transfer time. Go look at session 2, decide where you're going to go because there might be some new things in there. Same with session 3. Don't try to decide right this second where you're going to go for each of the sessions. So if you go ahead and move to where you'd like to be, the session that you'd like to be in right now, and I'll just stay here for a few moments to answer any questions that any of you have, and you can raise your hand again or just speak up.
There's a question in the chat. It says how someone for someone who's just joined, how do they go into a session? Once you figure out on the agenda wall, you can go to the agenda view tab up top of the main room, scroll through and see which session interests you. Then once you find something, go to the left, scroll down and find that topic or that room on the left on the bottom. Then once you do, click on that room, let your page refresh, and there's going to be a green button on the top left that says join video for main space. You'll be prompted to end this meeting and then join that other meeting to be in that room.
And I'll just say, if you're looking at the Kiko chat screen right now, if you go all the way to the right and scroll down past the networking rooms, you'll be able to see those breakout rooms, and you can see that there are people joining them right now. You kind of have to go down, you have to scroll down a ways to be able to see those breakout rooms.
Another thing to add from the conversation, the sessions will not end. They will be open as long as throughout the night, so that if the conversation wants to continue, even through the post-networking time, you're more than welcome to stay and continue the conversation. The notes will be available as well. So please continue the conversations for your benefit.
Yeah, some of the rooms are likely to go away at some point in the evening because we're changing up the space for tomorrow. But all of the notes will be kept somewhere that you can still access them, and we'll tell you where that is in the tomorrow morning. Thanks for catching the chat, Sandra. My hand raise thing is like floating in front of the chat, so I haven't been seeing it. And now Lucas has added the names of the sessions above where it says breakout space on the left. So you can actually go to the left of your Kiko screen and scroll down and see what's happening in each of the rooms without having to go look at that agenda wall grid, if that feels easier for you.
And if you don't see the rooms and the names having been changed, just refresh your page and then you'll see it all update.
Yes, refresh your page. That's important.
This main room will also remain open, so feel free to hang out here too and stay and look and just to be around others.
Oh, people are moving.
I know you just talked about how to do it, but could someone like screen share how you go to a breakout room?
You want to do that, Sandra? Or do you want me to? Oh, you do. Okay, you go ahead.
Great. So I'll screen share now. Behind your Zoom window, you'll see on your web browser the KikoChat event space. And currently we're all in the main space here. And then if you go to your agenda view wall and say you want to go to space G, session 1, or later today you want to go to space D, you scroll to your left, down, 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 and all the rooms should be populated now with the topics. And so you click, say if you want to go to space F, click on that page, let it refresh. Either you can close out of this Zoom window or just automatically press this button here. And then it'll ask you, do you want to end this current session? You want to say yes, and then you want to go enter the other Zoom meeting, and then it'll automatically launch and you'll enter that space with the others.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I'm seeing another, in the other chat, a question. You don't need to sign up for the session that's happening. You can just jump into the room. If that's what you were asking. There isn't any need to say anywhere, I want to go to this session. You can just go to it.
For anybody still listening in this room, if you want to ask a question or talk here too, you're more than welcome to.
Hi, yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I just stepped away from my computer, and so I don't know how to enter the breakout rooms.
You're on mute, Sandra.
I will share my screen and show you the process. Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you.
Okay, so behind your Zoom screen or your Zoom video chat, you have on your web browser the Kiko chat space or the event space for Cut Fill. We're all here currently in the main space, and you had clicked the join video from main space, so this is where we are. If you click on the agenda view wall so that it's uneditable, you get to see all the agendas or all the sessions that have been called. If you'd like to add an agenda, or sorry, I keep saying agenda, if you would like to add a session or a topic, you can go back to the edit tab and feel free to add a session anywhere where you see it open. But once you find a space or find a topic that you want to join, locate it here, space G based on the session, and then scroll down to your left. All the session spaces have been designated with their topics up here, and you can just locate it, click on the button for that room, let it refresh, and then you'll see this green button, join video for session 1 space F. You could either close out of this Zoom first or just simply click this button. It'll ask you, do you want to end the other meeting? You'll say yes, and that will bring you to that next Zoom meeting space. I hope that helps.
Sandra, I'm just going to go jump into a room where I can see only the convener is there and suggest that they wait a little longer. And if no one comes, they could repost their session further down in the agenda. So that's where I'm going.
Okay.
See you later.
Great.
Sandra, this is Serena.
I hear you, Serena. We'll wait when you're ready.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm joining the audio by phone and the visuals and rooms by computer. And there was an option to like associate your phone with the computer screen. So like I've joined the chat room and it's working on my computer, but how do I join that chat room with my phone?
I'll take this one, Sandra. Serena, look on the bottom left, there's a microphone, and then there's some options like connect with computer audio or connect with phone. And if you don't find those, please let us know. Additionally, at the top left of the page, there's the green button that says join video for that room. If you click help, there's the direct phone number you can dial into. That's the other option. And for anyone else that could hear our voice, you're here at the main table. All the participants have already put the topics on the board. So the conversations are happening now in the breakout sessions. Sandra had shown her screen a moment ago. I'll share my screen again for anybody that has just arrived. On the left-hand side of the page, you'll see all the breakout sessions. So find one that you're interested in and just click on it. Once you click on it, your page will refresh and there'll be a new join video button for that breakout room. So once again, just scroll to the bottom left, find a topic you're interested in, enter the room, and then join Zoom. Let us know if you have any questions.
So Sandra, do you want to start closing now, or do you want to wait a couple more minutes? Kind of hard to tell when you're not in physical space how many people are missing. How many people are?
I think, Heidi, we should give people at least five more minutes because, you know, it's kind of tough. I've been kind of stringent with closing down conversations, but, you know, just because I'm on Cut Fill staff, But I imagine that some folks are still talking to one another, and I see the number like increasing. Like, yeah.
Very good. We'll do that.
I'll just make a quick plug for Inova that they're running a raffle in their room. Let me read the instructions of what's happening before I forget. And I'll repeat this again. Let's see. All right, so if you go to Inova's room, virtual room today, anytime today after the closing session, you can go into their chat, type your name. They're running a live raffle at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So that is 2:30 Pacific. Again, 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific. Inova is running a live raffle in their virtual room. And what they're doing is they're giving away 4 $25 gift cards to a business of your choice. They're going to spin a big wheel. I actually have no idea how they're going to do this. And then they're going to show the winners. So go chat, type your name in and grab that chance to get a $25 gift card to a business of your choice. So I'll reiterate that in a moment once people start filling in and no one has any FOMO. And you can also check out and meet some people from Inova who are just great and talk to you about their initiatives going on.
As people are pouring in, I just want to say, hopefully everyone had a good time today who's still with us. Been a part of, I see some heads nodding. That's good, that's good, that's good. And I've been asking everyone at the end of the sessions to kind of let us know how you feel, either via email, social media, or definitely the video interview room. I imagine the video interview room is going to be maybe quite congested. Hopefully, you know, everyone gets a chance to tell us how they feel, but please let us know what you liked about the event, how you think it can improve, and so forth via any channel you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, Ethan will go into the video room when we're done with closing and take turns with people, asking you how you feel and what was the best part of the day and questions like that, as Drew mentioned. We're also going to be using the Zoom chat in a really fun way to give you a chance to think about the day and express via typing something in. Sandra and I will be leading that, so we'll also be hearing from you about your day that way. It's actually really fun as a facilitator. One of the parts I like the best about going online is the Zoom chat, because you can do things that you can't do live with people. You can hear everybody all at once by what they type in, which you can't do when you're live. So
I'll just, there's a note in the chat that I want to respond to. The notes in all the rooms are available for most of today. So you can feel free to pluck them out, meaning you can press the print button and make a PDF, download it to your computer. We will make them accessible tomorrow in a way where you can see all the notes from all the sessions. But for now, if you are wanting to pull them out right now, go ahead and do so to any room. And then we will also have a book of proceedings after the event that will be distributed to registrants. But just wanted to let you know that you can feel free to go back into your room at a later time today and pull your notes.
And Heidi,
or add to them.
Yeah, and Heidi, it looks like people are pouring in. There's like one, I guess, riveting conversation going on in, it was session 3, space A. People are just leaving, but I saw a bunch of folks still in there last time I checked. So if you don't want to give people maybe 4:10, we're 10 minutes late on our start, and just to let folks keep coming in.
I'm going to do another plug for Inova, because I don't know, I want one too. So Inova is running a raffle, a virtual raffle in their virtual booth. Sorry, I keep saying virtual, in their booth. So at 5:30 p.m., they're going to announce raffle winners. And how do you get yourself in there? You just go into the virtual room, type your name in the chat so you can be part of the raffle. And at 5:30, they're going to spin some big wheel. Again, I have no idea how that's going to happen. They're spinning some big wheel at 5:30, and they're going to show the winners. And there are 4 opportunities or 4 chances to win a $25 gift certificate it to a business of your choice. So find some time before 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 Pacific to go enter your name in the Anova booth to have a chance to win one of those $25 gift cards. Kind of feel like Vanna White, like. Okay, so how are we feeling about folks returning to the main room? Should we wait another minute?
Everyone's back now.
Yeah, I would say just give it to 4:10.
Oh, sorry, yes, okay, 4:10.
The Anova wheel is pretty cute because they actually type your name in on a wheel, like on a website that's literally called like bigwheel.com or something.
That's awesome.
How do we get to the Anova room?
Oh, on the left, there are several rooms, just like you found the sessions today. Towards the top, it's the 4th room down. Anova Furnishings is the room.
While we're waiting, I see Barbara on the call. Just want to give LAF a little shout out. I myself am an Olmsted Scholar and Olmsted Scholar Fellow, and LAF has been integral in terms of the promotion and participation in this event. So I just want to give Barbara a little shout out.
On behalf of LAF, thank you for the shout out. LAF is an amazing group of people to work on our mission to support the preservation, improvement, enhancement of the environment by increasing the influence and impact of landscape architects. So certainly Drew, you as fellows, and the others from the Cut and Fill team, Kendra and Maisie, and I'm forgetting somebody, and Jen used to be on our staff, all of you for putting this together. It's been quite an experience and opportunity. So I thank you for your leadership here and letting people's voices be heard. Thanks. And I'll also give a good plug for Anova, who invests in LAF. And please, it's really fun. Matt's very creative and has this computer-generated wheel, so go visit him and you can be part of the lottery. But they do so much for LAF, and we really couldn't do all our scholarships and fellowships and leadership programs and our research programs without their support. So thanks so much.
Maybe last plug for Anova. They have a great presence at the annual conference. They're all good guys and gals. Love Anova, and they got a new it's like table and movable chair set that has really nice customizable color options. They also involve designers in their design process. Chris, the rep in Texas, came to our office about 2 months ago and showed us some crazy cool futuristic bollards. Great company, highly recommend, thumbs up, love Anova. They're not paying us to say this either. We just like Anova.
So since we're at 11 after and being mindful of everybody's time, I think Sandra and I'll go ahead and move into the closing. I just wanted to start by saying thanks everybody for coming and participating in something new. One of my favorite things doing this type of work is introducing new people to open space. And based on some of the comments, it sounds like a lot of you enjoyed this way of meeting and deciding what you were going to talk about. So you called and held 39 different sessions today over 3 time slots. I went and took a peek in some of the rooms. There's some great notes. So if you're having FOMO about certain topics that you missed, do go and take a look at the notes. It's always beneficial to take a minute and reflect on the day, especially if you've taken time away from your work and invested it in something else, to just take a few minutes to think about the day, what you learned, etc. You can incorporate it into your life much more easily if you take the time right now. So Sandra and I are going to be leading a really fun thing called Mad Tea Party. And if you think about Alice in Wonderland at the Mad Hatter's Tea Party, everybody was talking at once. In this case, we'll be posing a question to you to think about, and you'll be using Zoom to reply. Sandra will do the rules a second time. So she'll ask the question verbally. I'm going to put it into the top of the Zoom chat. We'd like you all to think and then type in your answer, but don't hit send yet. Hit send when Sandra tells you to hit send, so everybody's responses will show up at the same time and you won't be busy reading what other people are saying and thinking about your own thing. And we've got a couple of rounds of that we're going to do, and Sandra will open the floor for verbal comments for any of you that would like to. So I'll turn it over to Sandra, and I'll be putting the questions into the Zoom chat.
Great, thanks Heidi. So as Heidi said, we want to give you a chance to reflect, and we have a few questions for you to think about. And so here's how it works. I'm going to just reiterate again because it's a new thing for all. I ask a question, and then I want you to think about the answer, but do not type enter until, sorry, let me say this again. I'm going to ask a question, think about your response, type in your response in the chat button in the Zoom chat, but do not press enter until I say go. Okay, I'm going to say it one more time. I'm going to ask the question. You're going to think about the answer. You're going to type it in the chat box in Zoom, but do not press enter until I say go. Okay? Ready. What was the most surprising thing you learned today? Go.
So don't put your answers in yet. Or right, you want people to type first.
Oh, I said go. Sorry. This is fun. And we'll save all this chat, but you guys can obviously, everybody's free to look at it all day or all evening. And so as you're still typing and entering, I'll begin to ask my second question. Which subject or session stretched you today, personally and as part of your work in the field of landscape architecture? And I'll repeat that. Which subject or session stretched you today, personally and as part of your work in the field of landscape architecture? So please think about your response. I will repeat that one more time. Which subject or session stretched you today, personally and as part of your work in the field of landscape architecture? Go. This is so fun. So it can be, it's so fun to just watch. All right, so I'm gonna let Heidi take over.
So we just wanted to open the floor before our final question and allow anybody who'd like to make a comment about the day. It could be sharing one of your answers to the Mad Tea question or anything else about the day that you'd like to share with all of us that are still here at the end of the day. And we'll use the raise hand function like we did this morning for the agenda creation. So if you would like to say something or share something, raise your hand. The way to get to the raise the hand is to go to the bottom of your Zoom screen, click on participants, and you should get a screen that has a choice, a hand raise choice, in order to share something. And we'll wait a couple minutes because I bet somebody would like to say something. Anything about the day?
Hi, everybody.
Robert, oops,
Whoa,
sorry.
Didn't raise my hand, I'm sorry.
That's okay, you go ahead. Please share, and then I'll go to the hand raisers.
Thank you. I'm curious to hear from Drew and the other organizers, maybe a little bit about how you felt today has gone, but also what your vision is for tomorrow. I think there have been so many wonderful conversations already, and I think I'm probably not the only one who's curious to know.
We'll talk about that after the questions. We'll do exactly that, what we're going to do tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking. Robert.
So I came today expecting to sort of, have this playing in the background and listen to people while I clean my room and did stuff in my house. I was not expecting this to be such an amazingly horizontal discussion, people posing. It was just really wonderful. It's like one of the most humanizing human experiences I've had since this whole pandemic happened. And I just feel so grateful to be in a field where a principal of a major international firm, an emerging professional, and all these different people are just talking, and it's not this hierarchical thing. Everybody had something incredible to share, and everybody listened. And few spaces, let alone few professions, I think can say that. So thank you.
Thanks. Heather.
Hi, everyone. I'm pretty much just going to echo Robert here and just talk about how today, both explicitly in conversation and just by virtue of us all being here, we're demonstrating how important it is to kind of break down these hierarchies. We need to be thinking, I'm a student, we need to be talking students and professionals. We need to be talking between different schools, between different firms, and to have this model and this opportunity has just been about an invaluable experience. And I hope it's something that we can all carry on in our work as we move forward. So thank you all so much for the opportunity.
Thanks. Mara?
Hi, yeah, pretty much echoing what Heather and Robert, my roommate, said. Basically, I really enjoyed specifically the conversation on education and anti-racism in education. I think it was a great dialogue between faculty and students that was so open and so informative. And I think that's something that a lot of universities are struggling with on an administrative level, like that kind of student to faculty dialogue. So it was just really refreshing to be able to very openly have that discussion and get some very productive conversations going and solutions.
Thanks. Evan?
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you for all of you coming here together for that. And I appreciate everyone's interest in seeking new knowledge and asking questions. I also wanted to put out a request to have somebody share a little bit more. I saw many little scrolling down in that question saying something about unionize, and I'm curious to hear more about that. I'll call on someone to ask someone to share, raise their hand and share a little bit more about that.
Right. Ray? Oops. Well, Ray, and then I'm gonna go to Brandon.
So it was so great. It was definitely, I think, not only was it a great experience for the COVID age, but I feel like the flattening of hierarchies that have been talked about was really a lot more impressive here than at any of the in-person conferences I've gone to, where it seems like, principals are in their corner and high profile people, and, it's hard to, I just felt much more approachable. And I also just, I saw a lot of people who are from where I live, and a lot of the time it feels like within the field, a lot of people don't necessarily care about all of these same issues. And so it made me feel a lot less alone in the profession to have these conversations here. And I know there was something in here about having the opportunity to be like an optional list of putting your name if you want it. But I feel like if it's possible to potentially do something like that where people could include where they're from in case people want to try to continue and like organize on a local level, that would be really amazing.
Thanks. Brandon.
Yes, thanks. So this is going to be my plug for the second time today, and probably the 100th time in my life, to consider, especially for all you students and emerging professionals, to consider the private sector. This is, jobs like the planning department or public works or a parks department, where you can actually help drive the policy and dollars. It's a great way to help advance, help advance our understanding of how cities function and kind of the overall vision of our profession. So I really want you to think about that. Even jobs that say, entry-level planner, landscape architects make excellent planners. So consider going after those positions.
Yeah, I think Brandon meant public sector, but I think the chat is correcting him, but thank you.
Oh, did I say private?
Yeah.
Yeah, public sector. Should I say that all over again? It's so much less impactful when I start out with state. Okay, cool, thanks.
Ravija.
Hi, thank you all the organizers and panelists. I guess it was a very exciting day for me, and I learned so many different things, and I feel it was a very unique format to arrange a conference like this. And I was really surprised to know how people came up with like so many different topics to talk about. I learned so many different things, and the great thing about it is the sessions that I couldn't attend, at least I'll be able to access them through the PDF and the recorded sessions. So thank you so much for everything, and I'm looking forward to the second day of this.
Great. Giovanna.
Hi, I think that I was really wowed with how much like self-education I got then. Not that I don't need it, but just from the very beginning, from the differentiation between community involvement versus community engagement, that was a great kernel of knowledge that I picked up right away. And then so many other people who shared their insights and then were totally open to continuing the conversation after this wonderful session. So I'm just super grateful from a networking perspective, and I mean networking to collaborate, to educate each other, to provide space and advice for each other. I think this is invaluable. So I'm just really pleased with how that experience has gone.
Great. Rita.
Hi. I thought it was awesome how whenever you have the courage to voice something that's on your mind, odds are there are several others that are thinking the same thing. And so just the power in numbers and then discussing those topics was super encouraging.
And Dee Dee?
Thank you, Heidi. What I wanted to do is encourage everyone to vote. It's just really important that your voice is heard by voting. It does matter that you vote. I don't think that it doesn't. It does matter. So you must vote so these things that we are hoping for and talking about today actually can happen. So in my state, which is the state of Kansas, you can request your mail-in ballot by July 28th. So that's coming up pretty quickly. That's a safe way to vote. Many places don't offer that just automatically to you, but please vote. The primary is August 4th. The general election is November 3rd. I also encourage you to work on campaigns for your favorite candidate, because they're actually looking for people to join phone banks to call on behalf of those candidates that support the issues that you feel are important to you. So it's really critical. It's really critical that you know that your vote does count, and please vote.
Thanks. Jason.
I just want to say really quickly, kind of echoing what a lot of other people said about the format. I was wondering like why we were doing this format and like what the benefits were, and it just really just made it an honest, like equal level, horizontal conversation that all new voices can have all these insights on, rather than, you know, listening to the same panel as like 5 landscape principals that we've been listening to forever. So thank you so much.
Great. Azura?
Hey, this is just in answer to Evan's question. I think that the union kind of comments came out of a pretty great discussion we just had on the connection between labor practices and racial equity, and just sort of, you know, how we can work to challenge and improve labor practices in the profession. And there was, I think, a lot of interest in having a follow-up conversation tomorrow. So we'll have a session on that.
Great. Yelena?
Yeah, that was exactly what I wanted to mention, that I was really inspired by the sense of collective responsibility and collective action that our profession thinks we need to move forward. So whether it's unionization efforts or advocacy as a profession, I was so inspired to have this sense of community, that we're not just individuals like swimming upstream, that we're a collective and we could act as a collective. So that was super inspiring.
Thank you. Allison?
Hi, I just wanted to thank everybody that organized this, and it was just really nice to be connected with so many other landscape architects that I've never been able to connect with, and also just to see how many people are wanting to learn more and willing to learn more. It's just really exciting and makes me really hopeful and excited to be in the profession. Yeah, so thank you.
Lendell? Or Lendl?
Yes, that's right. I wanted to just say how grateful I am to be a part of a group and a member of a bunch of attendees that are so passionate and so intelligent and work so hard and are so gracious with the fruits of their hard work, that they are to share it with the rest of this group. The camaraderie is amazing, and I could not be more proud to be a part of CUTPHil 2020.
Great. Anybody else have something they'd like to throw in for the good of the...
We got one more with Amanda.
Hi, yeah, I just wanted to actually, I think Leslie just brought this up in the chat, but to everyone who maybe doesn't feel heard in their firm or in their workplace, that decided to speak up about what is going on with them. Specifically, we had a session about, you know, how can we kind of arrange our office culture and set up our office culture to be more of a safe space for Black people, people of color in general, and women to all feel comfortable speaking up and speaking out, because I think a lot of times those voices get drowned out. So thank you so much to everyone who shared and spoke, and thank you to everyone who especially said things that made them feel vulnerable, or who were introverts who spoke out. And yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for that. And also thanks for this platform, because it's been amazing.
Ilsa?
Hi, thank you so much for this. I just want to say that I think one of the things that I appreciated so much was hearing the younger voices, the voices that maybe are more hesitant in speaking up at this time. I'm mid-career, and I love having mentors and mentoring, but I just love how much I learn from younger people whenever I have the opportunity. And I think also, you know, for the past 4 years, I've been trying to figure out what it is that I want to do to help make the world a better place. And this is perfect. Like, we have such a wonderful profession, and our skill set is so vast. And I just, I'm so glad to be connected here.
Thanks much. We'll wrap this part up here so that we can end on time. And before I turn it back over to Sandra for the final Mad Tea question, I will say that tomorrow we're going to move into action planning. The morning will be the same, except that we have 1 2.5 hour session for anybody to work on a project, an initiative, continue a conversation that they had today that may turn into something. We'll have an agenda wall, the same kind of agenda wall, but it'll just be one because we'll have one long session. So the last Mad Tea question is designed to help you start thinking about what might you like to work on and invite people that you've met or that have been at sessions with you today or haven't been at sessions with you today, while you all have the chance to be together and actually maybe put something into action or move it forward or create the plan for moving something forward. So I'll turn it back over to Sandra, who's gonna ask the last Mad Tea question and close out the day before we get to go get videoed or dance or be on the big giant wheel of luckiness for winning something.
Thanks, Heidi. So I'm going to actually, before I do the Mad Tea question, I want to re-thank and thank again all of our sponsors. It's quite meaningful that you all had belief in today and supported the way. So again, to our seat sponsors, Landscape Forms and Permalock, thank you. You stepped up to the plate and you were extremely helpful. Nova Furnishings, again, too, so generous. And also our firm sponsors, our supporting firms, your support was not just monetary, it was a call to your own team and saying, please come to this event and have your voices heard and participate. It was that offering. You opened the space for everybody at your office and then extended that word around town. So thank you very much to CMG Landscape Architecture, to GGN, to David Rubin Land Collective, to MNLA, to Nelson Bird Woltz Landscape Architects, to OJB Landscape Architecture, Reed Hildebrand, Sasaki, Smith Group, Stoss Landscape Urbanism, Studi Balcones, SWA, TBG, and West 8. Please do also go back to your firms and say thank you for giving us that opportunity, because it's important that we all understand that we're helping each other to make things like this happen. And then again, thank you to our promotional partners, ASLA, to LAF, the Landscape Architecture Foundation, and also to Land 8. You guys have been huge in helping to promote this event, and the Ecological Landscape Alliance. Thank you so much. All right, so the last Mad Tea question, get ready, as Heidi said, is going to kind of prepare us for tomorrow. So I'm going to also help plant the seed for these next projects that we hope emerge tomorrow at the end of this event. Here's the question. As we close out today and look forward to getting work tomorrow, what is a project, initiative, or action you feel passionate about that contributes to a new future for your work and landscape architecture? I'll say it again, and it's in the chat. As we close out today and look forward to getting to work tomorrow, what is a project, initiative, or action you feel passionate about that contributes to a new future for your work and landscape architecture? Please begin to type, but do not press enter until I say so. As we close out today and look ahead to getting to work tomorrow, what is a project, initiative, or action you feel passionate about that contributes to a new future for your work and landscape architecture? Okay, go. So fun. And so while we're all seeing all these things populate, if you wouldn't mind, what we would like to do, and of course it's completely optional, we would like to document all of our lovely rectangles with some fun, happy faces, or just how you're feeling from today. If you wouldn't mind turning on your video, if you feel comfortable, because some of us on the staff end are going to take some screenshots of our lovely faces to remember this monumental time. So yes, please turn on your video if you feel comfortable. This is not obligatory. And so we're gonna do some like regular faces. We'll do some silly faces, but let's start with like a regular face. Like, how you feel? How do you feel, everybody? Everyone's snapping away. All right, now we'll do a really goofy, silly face. So what's your really goofy, silly face? Terrible at goofy faces. And then we'll do a thumbs up face, or either thumbs up or wave. So thumbs up and wave, please.
And let's hold it for 15 seconds. Three more. Two more. Hold them. Okay.
Are we good? Great. Yeah.
Woo, my fingers are.
So just a few housekeeping things about the day is still going before you guys depart or before you head on to other rooms. We just want to announce that ANOVA is hosting a raffle. And if you go into their virtual room, you enter your name in the chat and your name will be entered into the raffle. They're going to be spinning a big wheel at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. That's 2:30 p.m. Pacific. And they're going to show the winners. And the winners, there will be 4 winners to receive a $25 gift card to a business of your choice. So again, if you want to go check out ANOVA's virtual room, go into their chat function, I think in Zoom, enter your name. They're going to spin a big wheel at 5:30. So do it before 5:30 Eastern, before 2:30 Pacific to get your name in there. They're giving away 4 tickets, or 4 $25 gift cards to a business of your choice. So we have several places where you can continue the conversation from today. We're not closing anything out. As I mentioned, you can pull down any notes that you took from any sessions today. They're still up. You can go back and keep adding notes. You can keep talking to your peers and friends now about the same conversation or additional conversations. Keep talking. Use this space, please, as a space for you. On the left side of the screen, on top of all the sessions that we had today, you'll see several places for networking. I think if you refresh the page, if you don't see suddenly more rooms populating, we've got several places that you can go to for networking. So there's some rooms for students. One of each category will have the live DJ spinning, and one will just be a regular Zoom meeting where you can kind of talk and converse and network. So you have the option, DJ, no DJ. And the categories are just suggestions. You don't have to strictly be a student, or you don't have to strictly be a mid-level career person. Feel free to jump around. We're just offering them up as suggestions. And then just to give you a little bit of a bio of our DJs, we have Darius Darek, who's the sound selector, and Mano Abe, percussions, will take you on an ecstatic journey around the super diversity of sounds. Their attitude towards music reflects their post-migrant, open-minded and tolerant life, which they live in the 2 German capitals, Bonn and Berlin. So please enjoy them. And lastly, I don't want to forget this, we also have our videographer, Ethan, in the video room. So please do pop into that room and record some thoughts from your day, or record some responses to questions that we have pre-populated in the notes. So please help us document this event by giving us your sentiments from the event. And feel free to stay as long as you wish, continuing the conversations in any of the breakout rooms. And tomorrow we'll return to take the first steps towards making change. So you will be responsible, or you will be able to propose a project idea, and others will join you to collaborate for several hours tomorrow. And this is how we turn ideas into action. So thank you so much. Enjoy, have fun, dance. Thank you.
See you guys.
Awesome.
Thanks for your great participation and trying something new.
Viento que viene del mar, viento, traemos la libertad, viento que viene del mar, viento, traemos la libertad. Vuela, 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 vuela con nosotros. Vuela, 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 vuela con nosotros. Viento que viene del desierto, viento, traemos ese silencio, viento que viene del desierto, viento, traemos ese silencio. Vuela, 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 viento que viene de la selva, viento, traemos la memoria, viento que viene de la selva, viento, traemos la memoria. Vuela, 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 que viene de la selva, viento, traemos la memoria, viento, que viene de la selva, viento, traemos la memoria. Vuela, 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 vuela,
Rhythm of life, damnation. You realize all the time we wasted. You realize all the pain we face. Please pour a cup, feminine libation. My gosh, we raise you. Please sympathize all the lies we raise you. Please realize all the time. Finale energy, drank a couple quarters on my course, then I code up. If I rule the world, money stacks for all my daughters. Never ask for payment in the womb ×9. Now we see the blood on the street ×3. Feminine energy, balance up the indestructible in the vaginal. Heaven in thine, heaven is mine. Spiritual, lyrical, mother saying sweetest taboo, lyrical kind. If I was astonished by the level of shame, feminine energy, energy reign. Intuition and ambition, intuition shine. Intuition and ambition running through my veins. Pour out the love, let the healing begin. The birds and bees ain't got nothing. The birds and bees ain't got nothing.
Fambo, I beg you listen me. I beg you open your ears for anything that they say. Waiting that they talk. Now serious talk at they talk go. No beating Angaye speaking. Listen. In this world we deal, members say ya, one day go come when we all go. Before long, we go meet Mama Godo. When we dey meet Mama Godo, tell me, waiting, you go say.
Rhythm of life, damnation. You realize all the time we wasted. You realize all the pain we face. Please pour a cup, feminine libation. My gosh, we raise him. Please sympathize all the lies we raise him. Please realize all the time. Female energy, 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 times sorrows. Carry all the weight of the world on your shoulders. Give a couple crowns to the woman who had bore us. Told us, focus, love and support us. Magical, umbilical, my universe is radical. Introduce the nation to embracing what is factual. Feminine energy, almost mathematical. You can't really sum up what is infinite and valuable. Feminine energy, balance up the indestructible in the vaginal, heaven in thine. She sing a melody to pass the time. Give us her energy so she your mind. If I was astonished by the level of shame, feminine energy, never shame again. Rain, tamed, brain, praying, intuition and ambition running through my veins. Pour out the love, let the healing begin. The birds and
original best. Eyes of an eagle fly down like kestrel. Hunter, do not take the egg out of the mystery. On the last safari, them teary. Nobody no rest. See the river Nile, there you feel ice free. Hot in the red sun, melt every ice. And if you buck up on a tiger, don't scream. When you're in the jungle, I feel the heart of a lion. And the speed of a cheetah. Don't run when you see the rhinoceros. When you see the rhinoceros. Better run when you see the rhinoceros. When you see the rhinoceros. Put this in your diary. Don't ever take the elephant ivory. We're looking out like giraffes in the high tree. Feel your bad start a war with a big hippopotamus. Don't trust Pinocchio, send them to the doctor. Venomous, venomous. Didn't tell us that the papi more than generous. When you see the rhinoceros. When you see the rhinoceros. Better run when you see the rhinoceros. Rhinoceros.
Hey, Miss Puppy Puppy, you a murder. Millie love it the way you twist and a turn up. Hotter than lava, my girl, you a burn up. And I say, girl, you be never ever heard of. Hey, Miss Puppy Puppy, you a murder. Millie love it the way you twist and a turn up. Hotter than lava, my girl, you a burn up. You a burn up. And so me go so the dick, see them pretty, so the dog them a bark. Love it the way you whine or you walk and attack. So when you take body like a rocket, it a spark. It is a hit when the girl them chop chop. Hey, white, black, brown, slim or round, me not care. No matter the time of day, them fi get me anywhere. Me no rich, but if a silent man a millionaire. Girl, if you have a tight, bring it here. Nigga, hey, Miss Patty Patty, you a murder. Millie love the way you twist and a turn up. Hotter than lava, my girl, you a burn up. And I say, girl, you me never ever heard of. Hey, Miss Patty Patty, you a murder. Millie love the way you twist and a turn up. Hotter than lava, my girl, you a burn up. You a burn up, yo. Hey, wine around, make your tongue eat me bone. What the girl them will mix up the time, put Willie Bones. I dance, we come be dance, so no time to see them. It's a big up all of the girl them who know the way silly stunt. Hey, I mean, kitty with the hygiene. Pull up in the dance, always nice and clean. Hey, I mean, the proper looking wifey. Come here, have a sighty, you're not slidey. Hey, Miss Patty Patty, you a murder. Millie love it the way you twist and a turn up. Hotter than lava, my girl, you a burn up. And as a girl, you me never ever heard of. Hey, Miss Patty Patty, you a murder. Millie love it the way you twist and a turn up. I'm like lava, girl, you a burn up. And as a girl, come me never heard of. Kitty them pretty so they dog them a bark. Love it the way you whine or you walk or you talk. So when time the body like a rocket, it's a blast. The keys are it's when they can them top chat. Hey, the love black brown slim around him not here. No matter the time I get them to get me anywhere. Me no rich, but if a style man a millionaire. Girl, if you have a side, you bring it here. Hey, Miss Patty Patty, you a murder. Really love it the way you twist and a turn up. That love of my girl, you a burn up. And I say, girl, you me never ever heard of. Hey, Miss Patty Patty, you a murder. Really love it the way you twist and a turn up. So that love, hey, I saw that love, yo. Hey, number one in the world, yeah. My girl just wind up to the one, yeah. My girl just wind up to the one, yeah. My girl just wind up to the one, yeah. To the one, yeah. To the one, yeah. Hey, my girl just wind up to the one, yeah. My girl just wind up to the one, yeah. My girl just wind up to the one, yeah. My girl just wind up to the one, yeah.
¿Cómo voy a hacer si dependo tanto de ti? Cuando no te tengo cerca me cuesta comer y dormir.
mira la fecha y me dice que no sabe nada de ti. Y hasta nuevo aviso tengo que aguantar la vista, no sé cuánto más allá de existir. Pásame la yesca para darle falla morning, quiero estar bien rato party cuando tú revientas el party. Después que me pongan a abrir, tú la puerta me vas a abrir, te voy a mostrar que un tiz empieza sonando bien louder. Métele con todo, dale suaga, suaga. Pásale la yesca pa' meterle agua. Súbele la mano pa' que me mueve. Báilate este rhythm que es candela y fire. Como el aire y el agua para vivir. Cuando voy a poner algo, lo mejor es con la banda compartir. Desde hace rato que te